Oh, what a tangled web we weave. an all-new Court TV true crime series.
This was murder.
Each week, true crime stories.
Hands up! Get on the ground!
Only Court TV can tell.
This case was unlike a normal murder case.
Tell us where the kids are.
They had no idea how twisted this case was about to become.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rowlands. Premieres Sunday night, 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
I'd never obviously been in war, but that's what I would imagine war to be. It was just horrible.
There was a car that drove through.
I could see that the driver was staring straight ahead. Could have clearly seen that they were running over people.
Oh my God! Put your hands up! Hands up!
That's how my story ends. That's all I've been thinking about.
Mr. Brooks insisted on representing himself in this trial.
And I do not consent or agree to being called that name.
Stop gesturing at me. Stop rolling your eyes.
Judge, do you hold the full judicial power of the state, or is this the military power?
Can you please take the jury out? I will give you the warning. You will forfeit your right to be in the courtroom today.
It's time in the ball. Let her go.
When Darrell Brooks drove his red SUV through the Waukesha, Wisconsin holiday parade, he killed 6 people and injured more than 60 others. But that wasn't all. He would extend that chaos he created at the parade into a Wisconsin courtroom in one of the most bizarre trials in American judicial history. This is Victim to Verdict. About 20 minutes west of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, sits the city of Waukesha, a growing community nestled on the shores of the Fox River with award-winning parks and a historic downtown.
I would say it's one of the best downtowns in the country, believe it or not.
The city's downtown district hosts concerts, farmers markets, a scenic river walk, and its annual Christmas parade.
The Christmas parade has been a tradition for nearly 60 years. People brave the cold Wisconsin weather. They stand on the side of the road and they celebrate together.
The community gathered on November 21st, 2021, on the sidewalks of Main Street to hear the festive music and watch the parade, which included the beloved group, the Dancing Grannies.
We were like sisters. We were a sisterhood. We do lots of parades. We do about 21 of them in summer and about 5 to 6 in winter.
I was there with 3 of my 4 children, one of which was playing on my baseball team.
It was somewhat cold, so we had different, trying to stay generally speaking warm. We had some little, very small kind of lights that were kind of carrying that sense of kind of bringing the light of Christ into Christmas.
The parade went from celebration to chaos in a matter of seconds when a red SUV Ford Escape started barreling down Main Street.
This all happened so fast and without warning.
I don't believe what I just saw. A car just came through and hit people.
There was a whole bunch of little kids standing right in the road. He ran right over them.
It went from this wholesome event to complete chaos. There were reports of shots fired.
Shots fired!
Shots fired! Run! Shots fired! We just saw the red SUV come and kind of hit people who were sitting on the side of the road, and it just went so fast, and he just flew by, and we saw his face and him hanging onto the wheel and just looking straight with his blank look on his face.
The red SUV seemed to careen through the crowd. No one seemed to be able to stop it, including police.
When I saw the red SUV traveling toward me at a high rate of speed, I used both hands and waved them overhead like this in an attempt to catch the attention of the driver. As the driver passed, essentially in front of me by about 6 feet, I could see the operator of the vehicle and a just a dazed, straight, focused look straight ahead, not looking at anyone.
Bodies were flying in the air and people landed in front of us, and then he was gone. You could hear the sound of thump, 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 thump. You just kept hearing that sound.
It's the most terrible thing I ever heard.
Dozens of people were injured, some more seriously than others, and people with family members were desperately trying to find their loved ones. Jackson Sparks was just 8 years old. He was marching in the parade with his 12-year-old brother Tucker, representing the Waukesha Blazers youth baseball team. They were both struck by that red SUV. Tucker suffered a fractured skull. He survived, but little Jackson passed away just a few days later.
Jackson Sparks would end up being the youngest fatality that day. In addition to the Little League team, the red SUV would barrel through several groups, including a youth dance group, the Waukesha High School Marching Band, and the Dancing Grannies.
I didn't see them get hit because it all happened so quick that I was still dancing. And all of a sudden, I seen the red car in front of me, and I screamed either in my head or out loud. I don't know which. But I said, what is he doing? Where's he going?
It was just absolute chaos. There were civilian subjects lying on the ground in every direction I looked, screaming, yelling.
There was what I would call screaming on the radio. I was stopped by numerous people who said that their children had potentially been nicked. The worst one was a adolescent female that was laying in the road with her family around her.
I'm yelling stop and pounding on the hood and trying to get the person's attention so they can stop. The vehicle kept going. It pushed right through me.
Where it all took place. Came barreling down this road about 50 miles an hour, hit everybody who was in the parade. That's what I would imagine war to be, just bodies all over, and it was just horrible, and screams and fear and people.
In a matter of minutes, that red SUV would kill 6 people and injure more than 60 others, shocking not only the state of Wisconsin, but the entire country.
The people of Waukesha were gathered to celebrate the start of a season of hope and togetherness and Thanksgiving. I'm sure all of us pray that that same spirit's going to embrace and lift up all the victims of this tragedy.
Eventually, the red SUV swerved off of Main Street, and while first responders were overwhelmed with the victims and the carnage, they knew the other priority at that moment was to find that vehicle and the driver, who, they would soon find out, was a man named Darrell Brooks.
I saw an SUV driving behind the houses on the west side of Maple. As I lost visual of the SUV, was driving behind houses, I heard a crash. He came around to the front of the vehicle, looked at it, and yelled, and appeared to be panicked, went back and got items out of the driver's side of the vehicle and then ran southbound.
I thought Mr. Brooks tried jumping the fence, and that's how he lost the first sandal. And I located a children's playhouse. I located the gray hooded sweatshirt that had a multicolored design. The same sweatshirt that we believe Mr. Brooks was wearing during that parade incident.
I found on the side of my garage. I asked him, what in the effing hell is he doing? It just seemed off because he was wearing a t-shirt, he was not wearing shoes, his eyes were huge.
Police found Darrell Brooks standing on someone's front porch trying to convince him to call him an Uber.
Hey, can I called an Uber, and I'm supposed to be waiting for it over here, but I don't know when it's coming. Can you call it for me, please?
About 5 o'clock, my Ring doorbell goes off, and then there's a gentleman at my front porch knocking on the door saying that they're homeless, they're cold, and they need to use my phone so that they can tell their Uber where to pick them up. Hands up! Hands up!
Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
He was illuminated by the officers with a flashlight. Mr. Brooks placed his hands in the air, stepped off the porch, stepped into the grass of the front yard, and went down onto the ground prone, chest down, entirely on his own.
He identified himself as Daryl Brooks.
Daryl Brooks was taken into custody without a fight, but when he got into a courtroom, that would change.
Coming up, Daryl Brooks in court.
Why is something always funny at that table? It would be the same thing. I'll take that as disrespect.
Plus, Judge Jennifer Duro.
I don't care if you don't like my tone. You've been pushing my buttons all day.
In November of 2021, Daryl Brooks drove his mother's red Ford SUV through the Waukesha, Wisconsin Christmas parade, injuring over 60 people and killing 6. The question immediately for investigators was why? Was this an act of terrorism or something else? As it turned out, for Daryl Brooks, this all started with a fight with his girlfriend down the street.
A few minutes before the rampage, Daryl Brooks is down the street at Frame Park. He's getting into a fight with his ex-girlfriend and mother of his child, Erica Patterson. Erica says the fight turned physical and Daryl Brooks got in his red SUV and he took off.
We were messaging and calling each other all day. We were arguing back and forth. Me and him got into an altercation. He hit me in my eye.
I could hear him yelling at her, "I'm gonna kill you, you know, you really messed up." And I heard Erica screaming.
He was just mad. He just left very angry. He just drove off fast. He was mad they called the cops.
After being taken into custody, Daryl Brooks told police that it wasn't him at all in that red SUV and that he was only in the area because he was watching the Green Bay Packers play football with his friend.
I was meeting up with a friend to watch the Packer game. Okay. That's the only reason why I was out here.
Detectives would confront Brooks with video of him behind the wheel of the SUV, which, they pointed out, was registered to his mother. Still, he continued to deny that it was him.
Hey, you? See your face. No, that's not me.
So at this point, Mr. Brooks is offering up to Detective Stern that there's a possibility that someone else may have been driving the vehicle.
What if it wasn't me driving? What if it wasn't you? What if it was my mom's truck? But I wasn't driving.
The evidence at that point, it indicated his mother's vehicle drove through the route, that he was the individual driving through the parade route when the vehicle went through the route. And I was looking for explanations why he's not willing to do that.
What I want you to see it is like watching all I'm thinking about right now is
here, we'll talk in a second.
What a hell of a journey it's been, but this is how my story ends. That's all I've been thinking about.
Daryl Brooks was charged with 6 counts of murder and dozens of other charges involving the parade. He was also charged with domestic battery involving that altercation with his girlfriend, Erica Patterson.
State of Wisconsin versus Daryl Brooks.
Anytime you have a case with a large number of charges, it can be more and more complicated because what you have to do is prove up every single element of every single charge.
What nobody knew at the time of that first court appearance is how truly complicated this case was going to be because of Daryl Brooks.
Most defendants don't say anything at all. They just sit there inside the courtroom. They let their attorneys do most of the talking. But not Daryl Brooks. He had something to say about everything.
All this political, this is show. Y'all getting told with it.
Mr. Brooks. Mr. Brooks.
Y'all
Mr. Brooks.
know nothing about where I come from.
Mr. Brooks.
Push me, dog. Don't push back. No, I'm worried about, man. Don't put your hand on me, dude.
Nobody put their hands on you.
Hey, yeah, they better not put their hand on me.
Okay, Mr. Brooks, you need to look at me for a minute, okay? It's been a long day and a half.
Get your hands off me.
We'll come back at 12:30.
Just told you get a walk.
The person assigned to handling this case was Chief Judge of the 3rd District of Wisconsin Circuit Courts, Judge Jennifer Duro.
Brooks decides to represent himself just a few days before jury selection begins. Judge Duro believes this is just another tactic for him to delay this trial process.
Is it your desire to represent yourself in this case?
It is. I would like to proceed in this matter for prior persona.
What I had every so often were what are called pro se defendants, those who aren't represented. And what happens is it creates a wild card. You don't quite know what they're gonna do. I mean, the Sixth Amendment says you have the right to represent yourself if you want to do that. But the problem is they don't really know what they're doing.
There's no evidence before the court to suggest he has a severe mental illness, which is why, of course, I looked at the NGI evaluations, because that is competent, recent information before this court regarding his mental status and his understanding of what is going on.
The first thing that judges usually do is they want to make sure that they're competent to represent themselves. So in other words, they got to make sure that they understand that they have the right to have an attorney, that they're going to give up that right, and they're sufficiently competent in order to do so.
He is voluntarily and freely waiving the right to be represented by counsel and is making a deliberate choice to proceed without counsel, and therefore the court will grant the motion to withdraw. And from this point forward, Mr. Brooks will proceed as his own attorney.
Frequently, what we're seeing is somebody with no experience, no education, no background, no capability, no understanding of any of this, who can come in and say blindly, guess what, I can do this myself. They're going to hold them to the very same standard as if they were a lawyer.
Darrell Brooks begins the process of representing himself, and it was clear even before the trial began that this was going to be a problem, starting with jury selection, where Brooks tried to eliminate every single possible juror.
You do not have the right to be that disruptive.
Eventually, a jury was picked, and it was time for the start of trial, which, again, Darrell Brooks tried to sabotage.
On the first day of the trial, immediately, Darrell Brooks begins fighting with Judge Dorough.
Mr. Brooks, you just interrupted me within a minute of us starting this case here today.
With all due respect, Your Honor,
saying all due respect doesn't change the fact that you're interrupting me. Your objection is noted.
She has to banish him to the courtroom next door for acting up, but that doesn't help. He continues to be out of order, delaying opening statements on the very first day.
The judge has the power to remove a defendant if that person is being a distraction. And the question frequently is, they're simply removed outright. The idea that what she did was somewhat of a half measure.
You can see that he is seated with his back to the court or to the camera. He took his shirt off as well. I'm also told that he is threatening to throw and break items. It is simply another tactic of his to disrupt, to delay, to create chaos.
Coming up, the state presents its case against Darrell Brooks.
There was a car that drove through.
And Judge Dorough does her best to try to keep the trial moving.
Stop gesturing at me. Stop rolling your eyes at me. Stop mumbling.
I'm looking right at you. I'm not rolling my eyes.
No, you have throughout.
4 University of Idaho students were found brutally murdered.
If I'm the parent of one of these poor kids, he is the boogeyman.
The Case Against Brian Kohberger premieres next Sunday night, 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
In October of 2022, after numerous delays, including a decision to represent himself, Darrell Brooks stood trial for the Waukesha Christmas Parade Rampage that killed 6 and injured more than 60 others. Because of his numerous outbursts leading up to the trial, Judge Jennifer Dorough made the decision to remove Brooks at times from the main courtroom and put him into an adjacent room with a video and audio feed. He was given an objection sign, and she had a mute button. Just before opening statements, Judge Dorough invited Darrell Brooks back into the main courtroom.
I certainly am willing to have you brought back over while the state gives their opening statement. I know you're holding up your objection sign, sir. Would you like to come back to this courtroom?
So I can get sent back over here, because as soon as I say something, I'm going to get sent out.
Mr. Brooks, it's your conduct in this courtroom. It is what dictates the court's response. If you follow the rules of decorum, and courtesy and civility, you will remain.
Do you see these boxes I got right here? Do you think I was able to go through everything in those boxes?
Mr. Brooks, I'm not gonna go through this with you again where you attempt to put on the record all of these issues that you have when we're in the middle of a trial. All right? You willingly waived your right to an attorney. I made all of those findings, so we will go forward.
You made those findings.
I am not obligated to answer questions. When you ask me questions, I'm gonna mute him.
As he continued to wave his arms and object, Judge Duro went forward with the state's opening statement in the main courtroom in front of the jury without Darrell Brooks.
Thousands of people were bundling up and going downtown to watch the annual Waukesha Christmas parade. The streets were lined with friends and family members and neighbors, people there to soak up the atmosphere. You'll see from the videos, there was a true sense of joy in the air. Darrell Brooks killed that joy. He replaced it with terror, trauma, and death. The evidence will show that he left that crime scene because he was fleeing from another one where he had laid his hands on a woman and where police involvement became inevitable. So as he careened down Main Street, swerving from curb to curb, hands glued to the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the road in front of him with a silent rage on his face, he hit the gas with his red Ford Escape and used it as a battering ram over and over again, striking men, women, and kids.
Over the next several weeks, the state presented its case against Darrell Brooks. For most of it, he was in the main courtroom acting as his own attorney, which included cross-examining the state's witnesses, from lead detectives to victims and his ex-girlfriend, Erica Patterson.
First of all, good morning.
Good morning.
And happy birthday.
Thank you.
This case was so unique in many ways. The prosecution would call victim witnesses to the stand to describe what would happen. And not only do they have to sit there and look at the man who's accused, but then they had to sit there while he cross-examined them with questions that would drone on for what seemed like forever.
So you didn't say anything at all during your 30 minutes with the alleged defendant?
No, because I was crying the whole time because Mr. Brooks was yelling at me, arguing with me.
Why didn't you file a report with law enforcement on November the 20th after you alleged that you were abused?
Because I've been dealing with it for so many years, I just didn't do it. I don't see what this has anything to do with this case.
You were not drinking on both of those days that you cite, the 20th or the 21st?
The 20th.
Hold on. Mr. Brooks, under 90611, I'm stopping this cross-examination. You've asked the same question, multiple questions, multiple times, and at this point, I'm going to declare that the opportunity to cross is now concluded.
I didn't know that was the same question, Your Honor.
Mr. Brooks, it's been asked and answered multiple times.
When Brooks cross-examined his former girlfriend, it broke my heart like it broke so many people's hearts, because the system is designed to be a shield. It's designed to protect people. It's designed to make sure that you go after those who do terrible things.
One of the most uncomfortable moments in the courtroom was when Darrell Brooks cross-examined Jeffrey Rogers, 8-year-old Jackson Sparks baseball coach.
Any reason why you would not try to identify the driver?
Because my children were about to be struck.
Any reason why you would not try to see if you can catch a license plate number?
Because people had just been hit.
There were moments inside the courtroom where the defendant seemed to want all eyes on him even more than what they already were. He would say, "Oh, I need a moment," and he would look to collect himself or dab his eyes or hold up the Bible that he would bring to court every day. He was definitely putting on a show in more ways than one.
Mr. Brooks, you may start your questioning of this witness then.
I'm sorry about that. I just needed a second. I apologize to the witnesses. A little emotional right now for me, so I apologize to the court as well for the delay.
At one point during the testimony of a dance coach who had 14 of her girls injured in the parade massacre, a prosecutor objected to Darrell Brooks' behavior.
I have to step in here and request that Mr. Brooks be instructed to stop making comments under his breath. This witness is very clearly having an emotional and difficult time testifying, and she doesn't need to hear that.
Objection, she can't hear anything I'm saying.
There were certain aspects of what Brooks did that created a lot of hatred against Mr. Brooks. This is one of the reasons you want to have a lawyer, to try to stop you from doing stupid stuff, horrible stuff, stuff that's going to get you convicted. Those are the kinds of things that put you in a cell for the rest of your life.
Coming up, it's Darrell Brooks' turn to put on his case as he forces his ex-girlfriend to come back to court.
Do you recognize these pictures?
Then, the friction between Darrell Brooks and Judge Duro hits a boiling point.
No integrity whatsoever. How can you even call yourself a
Mr.
judge?
Brooks, I need to make a record.
A brilliant law professor gunned down.
In the midst of a bitter custody battle.
Now the victim's former brother-in-law, a prominent South Florida dentist,
accused of being the mastermind behind the murder.
Florida prosecutors are setting their sights on Charlie Adelson.
3 people have already been convicted for their role in the plot.
Now, will Charlie Adelson's own words come back to haunt him?
The Dentist Mastermind Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings on Court TV.
Darrell Brooks was accused of killing 6 people and injuring more than 60 others by driving his SUV through the Waukesha, Wisconsin Christmas parade in November of 2021. During his trial, Brooks decided to represent himself, and after weeks of testimony, the frustration level in the courtroom continued to increase as the state of Wisconsin presented its case.
We haven't addressed subject
All right,
matter
thank you.
jurisdiction yet at all.
Everyone, please be seated. The jury will disregard the statements Mr. Brooks is making about subject matter jurisdiction. They are a misstatement of the law.
As this trial inched closer and closer to a conclusion, it seemed that Darrell Brooks was becoming more and more disruptive, trying to do everything he could to delay the inevitable.
I have no idea what you're talking about. So
I got the paperwork right here.
all right, I'm going to excuse the jury right
about?
now, given this disruption. Mr. Brooks, I'm going to continue with this trial, whether you believe jurisdiction has been proven or
It has not been proven for the record.
A second copy was provided to you. I know you saw it because you tore it up. Please, I'm asking you to stop. Please
You can't
listen.
just disregard the United States Constitution. Are you holding me in contempt?
I'm not answering your questions.
So then you're not holding me in contempt.
Do not interrupt me again or you will go to the other courtroom.
You could feel Judge Duro's frustration. She's trying to manage this uncontrollable defendant with the goal of moving the trial along, but at the same time, preserving his constitutional rights.
The back and forth between Judge Duro and Darrell Brooks was not only extremely frustrating for the victims' families, but also for lead prosecutor Susan Opper.
The court is well aware there's nothing that...
Hold on, sir. Stop interrupting.
This court has been abundantly patient with Mr. Brooks. He challenges the court's authority repeatedly. This court absolutely has the ability to tell him, sit down and be quiet. And you haven't done that. And I know why you haven't done that, Your Honor, and we appreciate that. He is not in control of this courtroom. You are. And he needs to respect that.
At the beginning, we were all very surprised of like, what is this and what is he doing? Over time, I hate to say it, but we just adapted and dealt with it.
At the end of the state's case, the chaos in the courtroom reached a new level when prosecutors introduced this video.
I just got a load worth about a half a ticket.
Of Darrell Brooks standing in front of that red SUV that the state says was used in the deadly rampage.
That video is relevant for a number of different reasons.
I just said that. You didn't even let me finish.
You're not letting me finish.
You didn't let me finish either, Your Honor.
Then you need to provide me with the legal basis for that, sir.
So I was supposed to already come in here this morning to say, oh, a video is going to be shown off the fly at the drop of a hat. Let me try to find some legal thing to combat. How am I supposed to do it?
You opened, the bottom line is you opened the door to the playing of that video.
We're not talking about
and the
opening
video
no
was
doors.
previously provided to you during discovery.
We're not talking about opening no doors. We're talking about being fair.
he did remind me of the sovereign citizen posse comitatus sort of mindset. But there was also that interesting sort of petulant child, spoiled brat sort of approach that went alongside that.
That's ridiculous.
You're representing yourself. It's not ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. If I don't understand, how do I know?
15 minutes.
How do I know what I'm supposed to answer if I don't understand?
Many people were getting frustrated with Judge Doro, believing that she was letting Darrell Brooks take too much control of what was happening inside the courtroom.
When the judge returned, the state rested its case, and everyone in the courtroom was bracing for what would happen next, because it was time for Darrell Brooks, who, remember, is representing himself, to put on his defense.
In his defense case, Darrell Brooks calls to the stand his ex-girlfriend, Erica Patterson, in what seemed like an attempt to counteract the battery charge he was facing. But it didn't really help in his favor. It was more of an attempt to really just torture his ex-girlfriend.
November 21st, 2021. Would it be fair to say that you did meet up with the alleged defendant?
Yes.
When Brooks made the decision to bring his ex-girlfriend back when he had his own case, this sort of just was salt in the wound.
I don't know if you can see him from here, but do you recognize these pictures?
You need to show those to the state. The bail will take them. It's not proper procedure, sir.
It seemed as though Brooks, if given the opportunity, would have kept his ex on the stand for hours, but eventually, Judge Duro stepped in and stopped it.
Under my authority, under 906.11, then I will declare that his questioning of her to be closed.
With Erica Patterson now gone, Brooks now set his sight on parade spectators. His goal was to try to establish the fact that while he was running people down in that red SUV, he was honking his horn. From his point of view, he did his best to warn people to get out of the way.
I heard honking. I'm not positive if it was the red SUV or another car.
It was a red vehicle. It was honking its horn.
In his defense, Darrell Brooks called some witnesses. He called some parade spectators to what it seemed like testify that he indeed honked the horn at times or tried to slow down the vehicle at times. But you could clearly tell inside the courtroom that the jury wasn't buying it. It really was not beneficial to him at all.
The vehicle caught my attention because people started yelling, and the driver was honking the horn.
What was the gesturing?
So he was taking his hand and going like this, really rapidly, aggressively. I took that gesturing as the driver was telling people to get out of his way.
I've been in a lot of courtrooms, but I have never seen anyone like Darrell Brooks. No matter what was going on, he seemed to have a problem with it.
Seems almost as if you're recalling what you want to recall and purposely not.
Objection. Badgering the witness.
Yes, sustained. You do not have to answer that, and you are warned. You may not badger or argue with this witness. Next question.
Badger or argue. What do you mean?
What that really means is when you get the question out there and the witness answers that question, if you come back at them again because you don't like the answer that you got, not with anything else, but you simply raise your voice and you lean in further, or you get a little bit closer, frankly, that's badgering a witness at that point.
The last question was badgering, which is a form.
But you said
Mr. Brooks, I've made my ruling under 906.11. Please ask a question or I will stop the questioning.
How did I intimidate?
Ask your next question or the questioning of this witness will end.
How are you even a judge?
All right, you may step down, ma'am. Thank you.
How are you even a judge?
Judge Doro would ultimately close Brooks' defense case after many arguments with her and after he became unresponsive to the judge's questions.
Like, I don't even want to be in here that much longer. Just do what you got to do so I can get up out of here. I'm tired of being in the courtroom that has no integrity whatsoever. How can you even call yourself a judge?
Brooks, I need to make a record of
I need to make a record, too.
Mr. Brooks, you're being taken to the next courtroom.
Mr. Brooks. Don't try to address me like that, like we cool. You don't have no integrity.
Coming up, the jury has a verdict.
Just a reminder to everyone that I do expect everyone in the courtroom to demonstrate appropriate decorum and courtesy as the verdicts are read.
Then it's the victim's turn to address Darrell Brooks.
I can only hope they lock you away someplace so deep the rats chew on your fingers at night.
After weeks of testimony and disruptions, the case against Darrell Brooks came to a head with closing arguments, but not before Brooks did his best to derail the proceedings once again.
I'm going to raise issues that the jury needs to know.
They're not
regardless.
A fair trial does not mean a defendant has unfettered rights to state whatever he wants when he wants.
We're talking about closing arguments that I said it's my right to be able to inform the jury of the truth, their duties, and their rights.
Are you going to
answer questions as a public servant on why you're making up laws that are not in the Illinois versus Allen? It never utilized the mute button. It never said anything about a mute button.
It is clear that Mr. Brooks has absolutely no intention of following the simple rules of decorum.
So how can you invite me to do anything?
The courtroom is to be cleared so that Mr. Brooks can be removed to the next courtroom.
A fed-up Judge Jennifer Duro had enough of Darrell Brooks and sent him to an adjacent courtroom where he could hold up his objection sign as lead prosecutor Susan Opper delivered her closing argument.
There's overwhelming evidence that this was an intentional act by Darrell Brooks and an act of utter disregard for human life. Not one person had to be hurt that day if he would have just stopped driving. It's time for Darrell Brooks to stop running. It's time for him to stop lying. It's time for him to be held accountable for his actions.
Brooks says he's going to deliver his closing argument from the heart, but he never accepts responsibility. He never apologizes to any of the parade victims. He does say that the incident was never intended.
Throughout this year, I've been called a lot of things. And to be fair, I am a lot of things. A murderer is not one of them.
There was a moment that raised a lot of eyebrows during his closing when he said his conscience was clear and that he didn't know why this was God's will for this to happen, as if he was a martyr.
For whatever mistakes that I myself have made in my life, I've made peace with God. I'm happy to say that my conscience is clear. Nobody will never know why it was his will for this to happen. And no matter how much sometimes we want to question, we have to have faith. Look inside yourself and make the right decision.
Then it was time for the jury to deliberate Darrell Brooks' fate. It took them just over 2 hours before coming back with a verdict. After everyone, including victim family members, assembled inside the courtroom, Judge Jennifer Duro stood up and read the verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Darrell E. Brooks, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 1 of the information.
Inside the courtroom during the reading of the verdicts, it is a packed house, victim family members, emotions at an all-time high as we sit to hear the decision for all 76 counts against Darrell Brooks. The judge starts reading the verdicts. She reads the first guilty verdict. After the second one, there was an outburst.
Did the defendant commit first-degree intentional homicide while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes.
Burn in hell, you piece of...
Hey, you are to be removed right now. You will not do that.
Please, Forrest.
There is something called judicial demeanor. The idea that there are certain judges who just are wired to do this and they do this well. Judge Dora was actually one of those people. When I watched what she did, she always seemed to keep her eye on the prize. And the prize in this case was a fair, balanced trial that protected his rights.
A few weeks after being found guilty, it was time for Darrell Brooks to sit and listen and allow victim family members to say their piece, including the mother of 8-year-old Jackson Sparks, who was killed by Brooks while marching with his brother and their youth baseball team in the Christmas parade.
I want to give a voice to our son, Jackson Sparks. Our family is forever changed. We are hurt, angry, traumatized, and broken. I wish I would have known then that the hug he gave me before I went to sit down was the last hug I would ever get from him. I would have held on to him a lot longer. Being the protective big brother, Tucker blamed himself. He felt he should have tried to grab Jackson or done more to protect his little brother. It broke my heart to hear him saying these things. His little brother was taken from him. He's suddenly an only child now. He misses his little brother and his playmate. We feel this man does not deserve to see freedom in our lifetime, nor our son Tucker's lifetime.
For the first time since the trial began, Darrell Brooks was forced to sit and listen to victim and family members speak. Some of them took the opportunity to lash out at Darrell Brooks.
You are a monster. You deserve contempt and death. Sadly, with no death penalty in this state, I can only hope they lock you away someplace so deep the rats chew on your fingers at night. As for me, this will never be over until the day I'm pissing on your grave. I think it would be fair to say that for your crimes, even God hates you.
During his sentencing, Darrell Brooks' disrespectfulness inside of a courtroom is at an all-time high. As the victim impact statements are being read to the judge, he is at times laughing, clapping his hands, ignoring the speaker, reading his Bible, even patting his chest. At one point, one of those victims directly addresses Darrell's disrespect.
Please don't do that. It's so disrespectful. I've watched all day on TV, and I've watched you mock all of the victims all day. You roll your eyes and you make faces. If this was your 8-year-old daughter that someone else hit, you would have been beside yourself if someone made those faces. And you want people to have forgiveness for you and your child? You're insane. And I hope that you live in hell for the rest of your life for what you have done to all of these victims.
After the victim impact statements, it was time for Judge Duro, who for weeks was at the center of the chaos created by Darrell Brooks, to deliver her sentence. But before she did that, she broke down, talking about the youngest victim, Jackson Sparks, and the effect it had on his family, including his brother Tucker Sparks.
It's hard not to think about what I watched and not have this reaction. Those were images that frankly kept me up at night, that I saw over and over and over. And I didn't realize how significantly Tucker had been injured. How Tucker somehow blames himself for his brother's death. It's not your fault, Tucker. It's Mr. Brooks's fault.
Judges are human. And I think judges recognize the true loss here. People had to bury their family members, their loved ones, and he murdered them.
On counts 1 through 6, this court is imposing a life sentence without the possibility or eligibility for extended supervision consecutive to one another. 1 life sentence for Virginia Sorensen. 1 life sentence for Leanna Owen. 1 life sentence for Tamara Durand. 1 life sentence for Jane Kulik. 1 life sentence for Bill Hospel. And 1 life sentence for Jackson Sparks.
The applause that happened, does that surprise you?
I mean, you know, generally that's very frowned upon in a court setting, and it was allowed temporarily because of the magnitude of the case and the relief for the families and the community.
This is their moment. And I think there is something about respecting the process, but also respecting the people. Now, she didn't allow it to get out of hand, but I think that little piece showed some humanity and showed, I think, some thoughtfulness on her part, and something that I think was at least a small nod to a lot of people who lost something that will never come back to them.
This was a case about 69 victims whose lives will never be the same. 6 of them passed away, their families inside the courtroom, but because of the behavior of the defendant who chose to represent himself. The memory of those victims was pushed to the wayside. This was all about a defendant who continued to argue with the judge nonstop, every day, all day, throughout the trial, his antics making national headlines, and he fed off of that. He loved every moment in the spotlight.
Darrell Brooks was self-important, self-absorbed, the smartest guy in the room, just ask him. And everybody saw that. Some things you can't hide, and when you decide to represent yourself, sometimes those are the first things you see. Oh, and the last.
Despite the pain and horror caused by Darrell Brooks' rampage, the community of Waukesha gathered the following year to celebrate the annual holiday parade.
Tell us where the kids are. That's all I want to know.
She said, "You're not Charles. I don't know who you are, what you did with Charles, but I can murder you now."
We're gathering together as saints, as brothers and sisters, and preparing for the second coming of Christ.
She needs some serious help. I want her to get help.
You ever had something that you knew was the right thing to do, but it turns out that later on it was a felony?
I turned around and he hit me in the back of the head with a bat. I went to my room and got my gun.
How long have you lived here?
Like 3 weeks. Like, hi neighbor, sorry.
We did respond to an unattended death at the Daybell home, and Tammy Daybell was deceased.
A former friend of Lori Vallow Daybell tells the jury that Lori threatened to kill her.
Where are your kids? No comment? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
Every minute of every day where Lori's not saying something, it's a slap in the face.
Where are my brother and sister? Can't be that hard to answer.
He fought coming into this world. He was 30 weeks old. Leave it in.
One day, he will know. Murder. One day. Murder.
Stop worrying, Mom. We are fine.
She made choices, horrible choices. She's going to have a miserable life.
Lori Vallow Daybell, a mother accused of orchestrating the murders of her 2 children, was motivated, according to prosecutors, by religion, love, and her attraction to a self-described doomsday prophet named Chad Daybell. This is Victim to Verdict. Rexburg, Idaho, surrounded by the Teton and Sawtooth Mountains, sits 90 minutes from the western entrance of Yellowstone National Park. The people living in this section of eastern Idaho say they're closer than most, in part because nearly everyone living here is Mormon.
It's probably the area. We're all LDS, the majority of us, and I think that's probably something that draws us all together.
So in November of 2019, when news that 2 children from a local Mormon family were missing, it immediately grabbed people's attention. Nate Sunderland is the managing editor of the East Idaho News.
People were interested in the story right from the beginning. We don't normally get missing kids news releases that are like this, and it just continued to get bigger and bigger.
16-year-old Tylee Ryan and her little brother, 7-year-old JJ Vallow, their smiles now on a missing poster, hadn't been seen in weeks, and their mother, Lori Vallow, apparently wasn't cooperating with police.
Typically, when a missing person is reported, it's the parents that call us. And so when we posted this story, I think people immediately knew that something was fishy.
Eventually, the FBI was brought in to help, and the story started to spread far beyond eastern Idaho.
You have 2 children who have vanished, and their mother, beautiful blonde Lori Vallow Daybell, doesn't seem interested in finding her own children. Immediately, the nation was captivated by this story.
JJ's grandparents, Larry and Kay Woodcock, were the first to sound the alarm. The Woodcocks had a special relationship with JJ.
JJ was in neonatal ICU, NICU, because he was born 2 pounds and 14 ounces, and he was 10 weeks premature. He was our baby from, just instant fall in love. That's what you do with grandkids. You just fall in love immediately.
JJ was adopted by Charles and Lori Vallow when he was 1. But before that, he lived with his grandparents, Kay and Larry.
He's autistic, so there's, they have issues.
Charles and Lori got him and had him in the special schools. His intelligence level was unbelievable.
Even though JJ went to live with Charles and Lori, the Woodcocks, Kay and Larry, were still a major part of JJ's life. The three of them would often talk on the telephone and FaceTime.
Charles Vallow died in July of 2019. After he passed, the Woodcocks and Lori had a falling out. But Larry and Kay still desperately wanted to see or at least talk to JJ. But Lori had essentially cut off communication.
I was emailing her and begging her, please, we will fly to Arizona. We will fly to wherever you are. Give us an hour with him.
The fallout between Lori and the Woodcocks was partially over money, $1 million. Before Charles Vallow died, he switched the beneficiary to his life insurance policy from Lori to his sister Kay.
I didn't ask for that. He did it because he knew we were going to end up with JJ.
Yeah.
Or so he thought.
After Charles died, Lori essentially cuts out Larry and Kay from JJ's life. And remember, this little boy means the world to the Woodcocks. Eventually, they become so frustrated that they contact the Chandler, Arizona Police Department.
That call from Larry and Kay Woodcock would set off what would become a months-long search for JJ and his sister Tylee. Police tracked down the children's mother, Lori, in Rexburg, Idaho, where she'd been living for nearly 3 months. There was no sign of JJ or Tylee, but Lori wasn't living alone. Her brother, Alex, had also moved to Rexburg at the same time and was renting a unit in the same complex. And in the apartment next door to Lori, her niece, Melanie Boudreau, who had come to Rexburg along with Alex and Lori, leaving her children behind in Arizona.
Lori, I'm Lieutenant Ball, Police Department. How are you? You got a minute?
This is a recording of the first and only interaction between Lori and police, talking about the whereabouts of her children.
Are y'all alone, or is that help?
My brother's here.
So JJ would be where?
He's in Arizona.
Who's he with in Arizona?
He's with one of my friends in Arizona.
Lori would tell police that JJ was with a woman named Melanie Gibb, and his sister Tylee was off at college. Then she started to ramble.
It is very weird. I've had to move around a lot. One of my brothers is trying to kill me. Not the brother that lives here, obviously. He's kind of my protector.
She even brought up Kay Woodcock and the $1 million.
What happened was my husband, who we were married for 15 years and had raised all these 5 kids together, switched his life insurance policy to her, right? To his sister, who got $1 million when he died. And we got nothing. For me to raise JJ, and all the kids got nothing, and everybody got nothing.
That day, police also had a strange interaction with Lori's new husband, Chad Daybell, who at first claimed he didn't know Lori's phone number. It was obvious that something was wrong. So the next day, police returned with a search warrant. But Lori and her new husband, Chad, were gone.
There was food in the refrigerator, food in the pantry. Everything had been taken off the hangers, and there was no clothes in the dresser drawers.
Chad and Lori are gone, and it's clear that they left in a hurry. So for detectives, there's a new level of urgency for this matter, but they had no idea how twisted this case was about to become.
Coming up, Lori tracked down in Hawaii.
Where are your kids? No comment? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
Plus, Lori's new husband, Chad Daybell.
Living on the edge of heaven, where I tell more about my 2 near-death experiences and how that prompted me to write my novels.
And frustration grows.
But tell us where the kids are. Kids, y'all know that I love you. I want you home more than I want to breathe.
By the first week of December 2019, just days after the unsuccessful welfare check on 7-year-old JJ Vallow, an all-out search was underway for both JJ and his older sister Tylee Ryan. The children's mother, Lori Vallow, who told police that JJ was in Arizona and Tylee was in college, had vanished, along with her new husband, Chad Daybell.
We We attempted several times to get a hold of Lori, and her cell phone was shut off. We attempted to get a hold of Chad and never gotten any return phone calls. And in fact, they retained an attorney and refused to answer any questions.
Investigators quickly determined that Tylee was never enrolled in college, and Lori's Arizona friend, Melanie Gibb, who originally lied to police, she confessed, saying she never had JJ. She was only covering for her friend Lori.
She told me that the police had been there asking for JJ, and that she told the police that I had JJ, that I was at a movie called Frozen.
Weeks would go by with no significant leads, and by early January, concern for the children's safety was growing. Larry and Kay Woodcock, JJ's grandparents, were doing everything they could to keep the story alive.
Please, for God's sake, please step up. These are beautiful young children. We want them back.
This is Colby Ryan, Lori Vallow's oldest son and Tylee Ryan's half-brother. Unable to get a hold of his mother, he posted an emotional plea to Lori on YouTube.
I'm your son. I would never want anything to happen to you, and I would never want anything to happen to Tylee and JJ ever. I know you know the right thing to do is, and I know that you have a good heart, so I know that it's time to do the right thing.
Lori Vallow is on her 5th marriage. Her 3rd marriage to Joseph Ryan, Tylee's father, ended in 2004. Joseph Ryan died in 2018 of an apparent heart attack. Lori's 4th husband, Charles Vallow, was a stabilizing force. Married for 15 years, Lori and Charles adopted JJ together and helped raise Tylee and Colby. Kay Woodcock is Charles Vallow's sister.
So it was just a family unit, and we were part of the unit, and we loved each other.
If somebody 2 years ago would have said, this is what's going to happen with Lori, I would have never believed it. Kay would have never believed it.
As the search for the kids and Lori and Chad continued in mid-January, Nate Sunderland, managing editor of the East Idaho News, says they started getting a few tips that Lori and Chad might be in Hawaii, a place Lori was very familiar with. She and Charles lived on the island of Kauai for a few years with JJ and Tylee.
The police were going to go there, and they were going to try to either make an arrest or try to force the issue of coming back to eastern Idaho. We were able to go.
Did you do something to your children? Are your children still alive? That's a simple question. I've got 3 kids of my own. I can tell you every minute where my kids are at. Where are your children?
The video of Nate Eaton with East Idaho News questioning Chad and Lori immediately went viral, and it infuriated everyone who watched it, because here's this mother who just didn't seem to care about where her children were.
Listen, just tell people what's happening. There's people around the country praying for your children, praying for you guys. Why don't you give us answers?
That's great.
That's great. That's great that they're praying for you, praying for your kids. What? You have nothing to say?
With Lori and Chad now located in Hawaii, prosecutors back in Idaho came up with a plan to bring Lori back by filing a child protection order.
It instructed her to bring her minor children to the Rexburg Police Department or the Department of Health and Welfare within 5 days of being served.
And there's body camera video of Lori being served with that order. She and Chad are sitting outside, laying next to the swimming pool. Do you need something?
Any questions?
You have any questions for that?
Lori's in her bikini. Chad has his shirt off. They sure don't look like 2 people worried about missing children. And the book sitting next to Lori is called Visions of Glory, and it's about the end of the world.
A few weeks later, with still no sign of Tylee and JJ, Lori Vallow was taken into custody by Hawaiian police.
She was transported here to the Kauai Police Department headquarters and booked into our cell block, where she stayed until she got taken to her court appearance earlier this morning.
First of all, Ms. Vallow, do you understand that a demand has been made for your surrender by the state of Idaho?
Yes. Lori's first court appearance in Hawaii was short. The judge set her bail for $5 million, and it was in front of a full courtroom. Sitting there in the second row in a white shirt, blue tie, her new husband, Chad Daybell.
Chad was there again in early March when Lori made her first court appearance back in Madison County, Idaho, wearing red lipstick and an orange and white jumpsuit. Also there, Larry and Kay Woodcock and Lori's son, Colby.
My whole plan is to try to go figure out a way to actually speak with her and, you know, be able to get in front of her and just ask her son, just try to plead with her. Ask her where Tylee and JJ are. It can't be that hard to answer.
Colby Ryan was able to confront his mother in a very emotional phone call.
You think you can hide from me? Probably because you murdered my siblings. That's probably why I'm talking to you. Maybe you should understand.
I didn't. I'm sorry that you felt that way.
You didn't do anything, right?
You weren't there. So
You're right. I wasn't there. I was kept.
That's right. And one day, you will know.
Murder.
One day,
Murder.
you will know what actually happened.
You're right. And you know what?
And we all will stand there with
everything is right. You're absolutely right. He will convict the people who act in his name with pure blasphemy. Is this funny? This is funny.
Coming up, 2 dead spouses. Chad Daybell's wife mysteriously dies just days before his marriage to Lori. Plus, Lori's ex-husband, Charles.
So what makes her a danger to herself and to others?
Threaten me, murder me, kill me.
A Wisconsin woman accused of killing her friend with eye drops.
And then defrauding her for over $250,000.
The state believes this defendant has evidenced her capacity to take advantage of at-risk individuals.
Was the victim trying to commit suicide, or was she murdered for money?
The Eye Drops murder trial. Live coverage next week following jury selection on Court TV.
In March 2020, Lori Vallow was back in Rexburg, Idaho. Her Hawaiian beach clothes replaced with an orange and white jumpsuit. Her husband, Chad, still by her side, supporting her during court appearances. Meanwhile, investigators still had no idea where her children were, and frustration over Lori and Chad's refusal to produce Tylee and JJ was starting to boil over.
I only have one question. Where are the kids?
At this point, it had been months since anybody had seen JJ or Tylee, and it sure didn't look like their mother or her new husband seemed to care.
While Rexburg police and the FBI were doing everything in their power to find Tylee and JJ, police in Chandler, Arizona were investigating Lori for another reason, the death of her fourth husband, Charles Vallow.
I got in a fight with my brother-in-law and I shot him in self-defense. Is he hurt or is he alive or? Yeah, there's blood. He's not moving.
That's Lori's brother, Alex Cox, calling 911 in July of 2019, saying he had just shot and killed his brother-in-law, Charles Vallow.
You know, no weapons? No weapons on me. All right, come on out this way.
When police arrive, they find Alex by himself at Lori's newly rented home.
I'm gonna have you have a seat right here on the curb.
Inside is Lori Vallow's fourth husband, Charles, dead on the living room floor.
What happened today? How did it get to this?
Alex told the officers that Charles came after him with a baseball bat, saying it all started between Lori and Charles and that Tylee brought out a bat.
And then your niece pulls out a bat?
Well, it wasn't her. He was getting close, and she came out to defend my sister with her bat.
Your niece?
Yes.
Okay.
And then she poked at him, and then he took it away.
Alex said Lori and Tylee left to take JJ to school, and it was then that Charles came after him with that bat.
I turned around, and he hit me in the back of the head with the bat. So I went to my room and got my gun.
You went to your room, meaning the room you're staying in?
Yeah.
Okay, and you brought a gun with you?
Yes.
You always bring a gun?
I'm a concealed carry always.
Then Lori and Tylee show up.
Hi, who are you?
Okay, just stand over there for just a second, guys.
And then I told him to put the bat down, and he wouldn't, and he came at me again.
And the wife just showed up as well.
And I said, I want you to put that bat down, and he wouldn't do it. And he's like, and he came at me with the bat again after he'd already hit me in the head, so I shot him to stop him.
Lori's brother Alex is sitting on the curb telling the police this story, but there is no emotion in his voice. He just killed another person, but he doesn't seem fazed at all.
Then it was Lori's turn to talk to the police.
We just moved in here.
Gotcha. How long have you guys lived here?
I'm sorry?
How long have you lived here?
Like 3 weeks.
Oh, geez. Yeah, okay.
That's why the neighbors don't know us.
Gotcha.
Like, hi, neighbor, sorry.
The story of what happened to Charles and Alex and Lori's demeanor was suspicious. An investigation was immediately launched. Larry and Kay Woodcock didn't believe it for a second.
That was the most bull story that I have ever heard in my life. That was a setup, absolute setup murder for hire.
Remember, Kay is Charles Vallow's sister. She knew that Charles and Lori were having problems. Charles had recently made Kay the beneficiary to his $1 million life insurance policy, which Lori was about to find out.
She ran across, I imagine she was searching for the change of beneficiary form in Charles's file she had in Arizona. And she took a picture of it and she said, 5 kids and no money, and his sister gets everything. That was the last interaction with Lori.
Yeah, last communication.
Lori's ex-husband's death wasn't the only one being investigated. In Idaho, the death of Chad Daybell's wife, Tammy, was also raising suspicion.
Tammy Daybell was a 49-year-old woman in good shape. She was an avid runner, and suddenly she passes away in her sleep.
Chad and Tammy Daybell were married for 28 years before Tammy's death.
They had 5 children. They lived out in little old Salem. He held religious positions in the LDS ward. They were kind of the quintessential Latter-day Saint couple.
Together, Chad and Tammy started a book publishing company. Chad was a prolific writer, authoring more than 30 books, most of them about his past visions and the end of times. Like-minded authors like Chad and Tammy's friend Julie Rowe used the Daybell's publishing company for their books. After Tammy's death, something Chad told Julie about a vision that his wife would die now seemed suspicious.
I did ask him, Chad, do you still see Tammy dying? And he said, yes, I do.
Also suspicious, Chad declined to have an autopsy performed on his wife, and there was his behavior at Tammy's funeral.
He recited many things that were not asked for, and concerning the details of her death. He told us what happened to her that morning. He told us that she had since been to visit him and is helping him set affairs in order, giving him direction on how to handle certain children and their future, and even where they should live, what schools they should go to. He told us all this in just the space of 2 minutes.
At their funeral, he didn't stay there very long. He was upbeat. He was talking to members of the family like nothing was wrong. It didn't seem like it didn't seem like it mattered all that much.
Most disturbing, however, just 10 days after Tammy's death, Chad was on a beach in Hawaii marrying his new wife, Lori. Coming up, Lori and Chad.
I think she did a bit of chasing. She was like a Chad groupie. And I think he likes that attention.
And the dark turn of Chad and Lori's religious predictions.
Says, I'm Nick Snyder. I've taken over Charles's body. And Charles will be killed. I'm going to kill you. You're going to be murdered today or tomorrow.
On November 5th, 2019, Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow exchanged wedding vows on a beach in Hawaii. Chad's wife, Tammy, of 28 years, had only been dead for 2.5 weeks, which, for friends and family back in Idaho, was difficult to comprehend.
Chad marries this woman who is beautiful. She's blonde, she's thin, she's very athletic.
was bizarre that his wife would just die and that he'd hook up with someone so quickly.
Chad, who according to court records received $430,000 in life insurance money, tried to explain his wife Tammy's death to Lori's friend Melanie in a phone call she recorded.
Tammy had been getting weaker and sick, and I begged her to go to the doctor because her heart was failing her. She was physically falling apart, but she hates doctors, and she just passed away.
And there was something else about Tammy's death that didn't seem right.
Lori used her dead husband, Charles's Amazon account to purchase matching wedding rings. But this is 17 days before Chad's wife, Tammy, is dead. She clearly knows that Tammy is about to die.
Chad and Lori's beach wedding came just over a year after they first met at a religious conference. Lori's friend, Melanie, was also there. Chad was a featured speaker.
He talked about the different visions he had of what he saw was going to happen in the last days.
Chad's visions, which he claimed started after a near-death diving accident when he was a teenager, made him a celebrity of sorts within a small community of like-minded Mormons that believed the end of the world was imminent.
I've recently released my autobiography entitled Living on the Edge of Heaven, where I tell more about my 2 near-death experiences.
He would have meetings at people's homes where he would sort of promote his books. He would usually have 20, 30 people. He would just talk about the ideas in his books and what he saw in visions. And they were enjoyable to listen to, and I felt they were genuine.
The LDS faith accepts that some people have visions, and Chad let it be known to anyone who would listen that he was one of those special people, that he could see the future and the past.
According to Lori's friend Melanie, Lori and Chad had an instant connection and started communicating and seeing each other to discuss religion and Chad's visions. In December of 2018, they were featured together in a religious podcast.
We're gathering together as saints, as brothers and sisters, and preparing for the second coming of Christ.
It was obvious to Melanie Gibb that there was some chemistry between Chad and Lori, and that they had a relationship that went beyond just their doing podcasts together and discussing the end of the world.
Over the next few months, Lori was also starting to have visions, and Chad told friends that he had lived several past lives on different planets and that he and Lori had actually been married before.
The way he described it was that his veil was more open than it had been, and he started remembering some of his past lives.
Then in early 2019, Chad and Lori's beliefs, according to friends, started getting darker and stranger, including visions that certain people around them had turned into zombies, their bodies taken over by evil forces. One of those people was Lori's husband, Charles Vallow.
Her religious stuff is gone way off the deep end. Okay. Just way off.
Charles was so concerned about Lori's behavior, he contacted police, telling officers that Lori believed he, Charles, had been taken over by a zombie named Nick Schneider.
I've tried to support her as much as I could, but it's gotten really, really bad. Lately, she's had a break. She says, I'm Nick Schneider. I've taken over Charles's body, and Charles has been killed. I'm going to kill you. You're going to be murdered today or tomorrow. I can do it. I'm not going to get my priesthood power. She has priesthood blessings.
Charles also told the officers that Lori had told him that she had special powers and that in a past life she had been married to the angel Moroni, the figure seen holding a trumpet on top of many LDS temples.
She thinks she's married to Moroni in the past.
You think she's what?
We're married to Moroni, the top of the temple.
Angel LDS.
And she knows when the second coming is happening next year, so does the prophet. It's scared the crap out of her.
Okay.
6 months later, Charles Vallow was dead. Coming up, Alex Cox.
A lot of people believe that Alex Cox is the family hitman. Lori and Chad would decide who needed to die, and Alex made it happen.
As the bodies start piling up, one person seems to be connected to them all.
He believes that Alex Cox was the person who fired that shot.
By early March 2020, Tylee and JJ had been missing for nearly 6 months. Lori was in jail. Chad was back in his family home in eastern Idaho. Neither one were talking. Investigators released these photos showing Tylee, JJ, Lori, and Lori's brother, Alex Cox. The images were taken on September 8th at Yellowstone National Park. They were the last evidence of Tylee alive. The FBI was now asking for anyone who was at the park that same day to check their photos and send them to investigators.
This message from the FBI that, they wanted more information for the public, it was very evident that there was a lot of information about this case that maybe they couldn't quite piece together.
What investigators did know was the last day both Tylee and JJ were last seen. And on both days, Lori's brother, Alex Cox, was there. He's there in the Yellowstone photos on September 8th, and he was also there the last time JJ was seen on September 22nd. This is doorbell camera video of JJ running, captured on September 17th. The next week, on the night of the 22nd, Lori's friend, Melanie Gibb, was visiting Lori. She brought her boyfriend, David Warwick. The three were recording a religious podcast when Alex Cox walked in with JJ.
He was staying with Alex, and Alex brought him home and carried him to bed.
But the next morning, both Alex and JJ were gone, and the explanation that Lori gave was bizarre, saying her son had turned into a zombie.
She said that he was being a zombie and climbed up on the cabinets, climbed up on top of the fridge, smashed her picture of Christ down, and then climbed up onto the upper cabinets and got between the top of the cabinet and the ceiling. I asked to see him, and she just said that he was out of control, so she had Alex come and get him.
Remember, it was Alex Cox that killed Lori's fourth husband, Charles Vallow, claiming it was self-defense.
He came at me, and I shot him to stop him.
There was another incident possibly connected to Alex Cox in early October of 2019. Melanie Boudreau, Lori's niece, who moved to Rexburg at the same time as Lori and Alex, her soon-to-be ex-husband Brandon says somebody tried to kill him.
911, where's your emergency?
Someone just shot my window.
Someone shot at your vehicle?
Yeah, and it hit my window, it shattered my driver's side window.
Brandon had dropped off his kids, and he was coming back from the gym to his house. And as he pulled up to the curb, a shot came from a nearby Jeep that was parked on the opposite side of the street.
The bullet hit Brandon's Tesla, missing his head by a few inches. The shooter's Jeep with Texas plates was registered to Lori Vallow's ex-husband, Charles, who at the time had been dead for more than 2 months. Brandon says he didn't get a good look at the shooter, but believes he knows who it was.
He believes that Alex Cox was the person who fired that shot. He knew that Alex Cox was kind of the family hitman, and he just fairly quickly came to the conclusion that it was Alex Cox.
Around the same day Brandon was shot at, Lori was seen with an unidentified male loading a spare tire and what appears to be a vehicle seat in and out of a Rexburg storage unit. Also in October of 2019, another suspicious shooting, possibly tied to Alex Cox. 10 days before Chad's wife, Tammy, mysteriously died in her sleep, she called 911 to report that she'd been shot at in her driveway by a man wearing a mask. She thought maybe it was a paintball gun, but now authorities investigating Tammy's death aren't so sure.
While Tammy Daybell believed that someone tried to shoot her with a paintball gun, the investigators thought it was actually Alex Cox sent there by Lori and Chad to murder Tammy.
12 years before Alex killed Lori's fourth husband, Charles, he served 3 months in a Texas jail for attacking Lori's third husband, Joseph Ryan. According to the police report, Alex Cox used a stun gun on Joseph Ryan and threatened to kill him while accompanying Lori during a child custody exchange. Alex would actually joke about it years later during an open mic comedy routine.
You ever had something that you knew was the right thing to do, but it turns out that later on it was a felony?
Alex Cox was a possible suspect in Charles Vallow's death, Tammy Daybell's death, the shooting of Brandon Boudreaux, and the disappearances of both Tylee and JJ. Of course, the connection between Alex Cox and all of these people was his sister Lori.
They had a very, very close relationship. When they moved to Rexburg, he was in the same apartment complex. And we know that he also believed the same sort of religious things that Lori was believing.
Then on December 12th, 2019, another 911 call. Someone else was dead.
911, where is your emergency?
I need an ambulance. I have a older male here named Alex. He just passed out here on my bathroom. I think he's passed out.
Okay, you think he's unconscious?
Yes.
On the same day that investigators were exhuming the body of Tammy Daybell, Alex Cox mysteriously ended up dead. The official cause of death was a pulmonary embolism. The children were still missing, and now one of the main suspects in their disappearance was gone. Coming up, a major break.
Throughout the investigation, detectives and investigators have recovered what's believed to be human remains.
Chad Daybell under arrest after Tylee and JJ are found buried in his backyard.
They dug a little bit more around the round object, which appeared to me to be the crown of a head.
As spring turned to the summer of 2020 in Rexburg, Idaho, there was still no sign of the missing children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. It had been 8 months since they'd last been seen. Their mother, Lori Vallow, had been in jail since February, and her new husband, Chad Daybell, was not cooperating with police. The couple's bizarre religious beliefs included the thought that the end of the world was coming.
At this point, people thought JJ and Tylee were either dead or hopefully they were in some sort of end-of-the-world bunker being taken care of by Chad Daybell's followers.
Friends say Chad and Lori believed that not only was the end of the world coming, but when it happened, they would be leading the 144,000 chosen ones mentioned in the Bible.
So the book of Revelation has a chapter in which it talks about how when Jesus comes back to the earth, or in anticipation of that, then there will be 12,000 elders or members from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And so when you do 12 times 12,000, that's how you get to 144,000.
Chad and Lori also believed that evil spirits had taken over the bodies of people around them, calling them zombies. Lori even told her friend Melanie Gibb that her own children, JJ and Tylee, were zombies. According to Melanie, Tylee had overheard her mother talking about it on the phone.
Tylee hears her mom say that she's a zombie, and according to Melanie Gibb, Tylee responds, "No, Mom, I'm not a zombie." How heartbreaking, because Tylee knows what it means to be a zombie in her mom's twisted head. It's incredibly sad.
Then, on June 9th, almost 9 months to the day after Tylee was last seen, Rexburg police and the FBI served a search warrant on Chad Daybell's home. They'd searched the property before during the winter when the ground was frozen. Now they were back, interested specifically in the backyard.
I observed the evidence response recovery team and also cadaver dogs working the entire backyard. So they worked the pond area, and then they had marked off other areas inside the backyard.
Something stood out in the pond area on the north side of the property. Fresh sod on top of several rocks. Beneath the rocks, some paneling.
As soon as they removed the paneling, I could smell the odor of a decomposing body.
It was JJ. The 7-year-old's body was buried in Chad Daybell's backyard, wrapped in plastic and duct tape.
And then as I cut through the white plastic, that's when the, possible human hair started coming out onto my hands. And that was the point where we determined this is human remains.
Then they started digging in a pet cemetery. They found Tylee, dismembered and burned.
They had located what would appear to be a mass of burnt flesh and charred bone.
Earlier that morning, before the remains were located, Chad Daybell was watching the evidence response team in his backyard when he received a call from the Madison County Jail. His wife, Lori, was calling to say hello.
Are you okay? So there's such the house right now? Yeah. Why are they in the house? No, they're out in the property. Are they seizing stuff again? They're searching. I love you so much. Thanks, I love you. Should I try to call you later? I don't know.
After the phone call from Lori, Chad decided to take off. He was picked up and arrested by investigators immediately after they found the first set of remains.
Now both are in jail facing murder charges. Lori ends up being the first to go to trial. There were no cameras allowed inside. The courtroom was packed, and Larry and Kay Woodcock were there every day.
The defendant, Lori Vallow Daybell, used money, power, and sex, or the promise of those things, to get what she wanted.
She was a kind and loving mother to her children. The evidence will show she had a particular interest in religion in the end of times.
The defendant told others that with the help of Chad, she could rate people as light or dark. And they evolved to, well, a person could be so dark or a spirit could be so evil that the person actually becomes a zombie. You can't cast a zombie out. But a common theme was the body had to be destroyed.
In order to make sure a demon doesn't come back, the body has to be destroyed in some way.
Correct.
Burning is one way.
Correct.
Is there anything about binding?
I believe so.
So she had told you prior to the move to Rexburg that JJ, too, was being attacked by demons?
Correct. Right before she moved to Rexburg, she said that Tylee had been possessed by evil spirit or a demon.
We determined her cause of death to be the result of asphyxia, and her manner of death to be homicide.
Did Lori indicate whether or not she thought it was okay that they were engaging in intimate relations?
She did. She felt it was according to God's will.
You don't get married 4 weeks after you just buried your wife of almost 30 years. You just don't do that. And we found out it had only been 2 weeks after she had been buried.
From Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow, I need so badly to just gently kiss you for hours. It would likely lead to other activities. It would luckily lead to nakedness. Just grab me by the storm, and I will follow you to the ends of the universe.
Are you aware of what some of the phrase, grab me by the storm and I will follow you to the ends of the earth, meant?
The word storm is the name they had given to Chad Daybell's penis.
The jury took 2 days to deliberate, and when they reached their verdict, you could hear a pin drop inside the courtroom. Lori stood up with her attorneys on both sides of her, but still didn't show any visible signs of emotion.
Is Lori Noreen Vallow not guilty or guilty of first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan, of Joshua Jackson Vallow? Answer, guilty. Is Lori Noreen Vallow not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tammy Daybell? Answer, guilty.
Before Lori was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, she had something to say.
Jesus knows me, and Jesus understands me. I mourn with all of you who mourn, my children and Tammy.
In addition to the 3 life sentences for the deaths of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy, Lori Vallow also faces charges in Arizona in connection to the death of her husband, Charles.
Something was taken from us and from our friends and our family,
that obviously we can't replace. JJ and Tylee should have had an unbelievable life ahead of them. Lori is going to get and receive what she reaped.
Yeah.
She's going to have a miserable life.
I think she'll be in her hell on earth.
She made choices, and it was horrible choices. She has to say to herself some days, what was I thinking?
Shortly after her conviction, Lori Vallow Daybell filed an appeal asking for a new trial. As for Chad Daybell, he is facing murder charges for the deaths of Tylee, JJ, and his wife Tammy. He has pled not guilty. His trial is scheduled for the spring of 2024.
My two best friends were just murdered.
Join me for a Court TV true crime series where we take you from the crime scene to the courtroom.
Donna Adelson hates every piece of grass that Dan Martell ever walked on.
It's something that'll haunt all of us forever.
It always seemed like he was covering or deceiving. This was a whole different level.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rowlands, a Court TV original series. Season premieres September 27th.
Only on Court TV.
It happened so fast. Chad takes a couple steps and he collapses.
Well, the first thing I knew, popcorn went flying. And then I thought, oh my God, he shot him.
And what was it that you heard the defendant say?
Throw popcorn in my face.
I was never been that scared before in all my life.
And I think I'm saying either no, 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 or whoa, whoa, whoa. Suddenly my head was to the right, so he hit me with something.
I'm looking up at this guy, and he looked like a monster standing there.
Welcome to Victim to Verdict. I'm Ted Rowlands. On a January afternoon in 2014, an argument over a cell phone and a bag of popcorn turned deadly at a movie theater in suburban Tampa, Florida. 71-year-old Curtis Reeves, a retired police captain, and his wife Vivian were there in their seats ready to watch the movie Lone Survivor. Sitting in front of them, 43-year-old Chad Olson and his wife Nicole. Their 3-year-old daughter Lexi was home with a babysitter. During the previews, Reeves and Olson started arguing because Olson had his cell phone on. A few minutes later, after throwing a bag of popcorn at Curtis Reeves, Chad Olson was dying of a gunshot wound to the chest. The former cop claimed he was acting in self-defense. There is theater surveillance video, but it's very difficult to see. Prosecutors charged Curtis Reeves with second-degree murder. It took 8 years, but in February of 2022, the case went to trial in a dramatic showdown between a passionate prosecutor and two seasoned defense attorneys. The families sat on opposite sides of the courtroom, and Court TV legal correspondent Julia Janae was there for it all, starting with opening statements.
Just inside of the Robert D. Sumner Judicial Center here in Dade City, Florida, the 6 jurors and 4 alternates are going to be hearing those opening statements.
Mr. Rosenwasser?
Members of the jury, what you're going to learn during the course of this trial is that back on January 13th of 2014, Chad and Nicole Olson decided to spend the day together. They decided on that day that they were going to put Lexi in daycare. And eventually, at some point on January 13th, they decided to go to the Cobb Grove Theater. They were going to see the movie Lone Survivor. Picture this. So in the very back row, you're going to have the defendant. He's sitting in the middle. Directly in front of him is Nicole Olson. To Nicole Olson's right is going to be Chad Olson. Behind Chad Olson is the defendant's wife, Vivian Reeves.
The scene was intense inside of that courtroom with these parties self-segregating in the gallery. There wasn't a center aisle, but on one side of those rows, those family members and friends of the victim. And on the other side, Vivian Reeves, the wife of the defendant. Scott Rosenwasser told this jury this was murder, not self-defense, and it was all over popcorn.
There are 2 cameras inside of theater number 10 on opposite sides of the theater. They did capture some of the general part of the theater and did capture this shooting. Now here's what you're going to learn. Chad Olson had his cell phone on. This defendant leans all the way in. The defendant's tone was kind of demanding. Turn your cell phone off. He was looking at Facebook. The evidence will show you, of course, that's no reason to shoot another man. We have to prove that the defendant acted with ill will, hatred, spite, or evil intent. The defendant states Chad Olson turns around in his seat, and now Chad Olson says some words to him. Now, in a perfect world, should that have happened? No. The evidence will show you can't shoot someone for that. Chad Olson stands up and continues, and he looks at the defendant. And during this conversation, while he's standing up, he says, if it's any of your business, and there may be in there, I was texting my daughter. Chad Olson reached over with his right hand into the lap area of the defendant and grabbed a bag of popcorn. And he grabbed that bag of popcorn and he brought it back and he flicked it at the defendant. At about that very same time, Nicole Olson, remember, she's sitting in front of the defendant. She's starting to reach over with her left hand while this is happening. And in the process of getting up to say, honey, it's just sit down. So her hand's up. When her hand is up, and while Chad Olson's hand's coming back from that popcorn toss, this defendant shoots. At the conclusion of this case, we're going to ask you to find the defendant guilty of murder in the second degree.
The prosecution laid out their roadmap through those opening statements. The assistant state attorney telling the jury that this was about anger and retaliation from the defendant and not from a cell phone being thrown, which is what the defense was going to contend. Rosenwasser's presence, it filled this courtroom. It was clear from his demeanor that he believed in the guilt of that former officer.
I thought that the prosecution did an outstanding job of laying out exactly what their case was going to be in detail, what we could expect to hear, and why the defensive theories would fail in their opinion.
So the challenge for the defense here is to try to get the jurors to see it from Curtis Reeves' perspective, and that perspective has to be one of a frightened elderly man as opposed to a hothead with a gun in his pocket.
Next, the defense took center stage with their opening statement done by criminal defense attorney Dino Michaels, wearing his signature bow tie, telling a completely different story of self-defense.
I believe Mr. Michaels will begin his opening statement.
The government has to prove, what the state of Florida has to prove in this case, beyond a reasonable doubt, that this was not justifiable. You're going to decide if it's reasonable if you were trained like Curtis Reeves. You're going to decide if it's reasonable if you're 71 years old. Let's talk about Mr. Reeves. All right. 27-year police veteran. Served his community for 27 years, the Tampa Police Department. Highly decorated officer. None more decorated in his years there. Throughout his years, he certainly learned how to assess the risk. He certainly knows how to spot danger. And so when he's in that theater, it's no different. He's got problems with his neck, his back, his shoulders, his hands, his hips. And so what does that do to an individual? Makes them more vulnerable. There's a white light coming from the phone, and it's in Curtis Reeves' face. He asks him politely, would you please put the phone away? The answer he gets is, I was texting my daughter, do you mind? He was annoyed. That's what you're gonna hear. That's gonna be a description. Annoyed when Curtis Reeves asked him to put away his phone. What you're gonna see, there was an attack before the popcorn was thrown. It wasn't just one attack, and it wasn't just popcorn being thrown. You're the jury. You know what your job is. The prosecutor doesn't have to prove homicide here. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it was not justifiable use of force.
If they can get jurors who have cared for someone who is in that age group, that juror might give more credence to the idea that, listen, when they get to a certain age, they get scared of everything and they don't act right.
Coming up, the state begins their case against Curtis Reeves with eyewitnesses from inside the theater and their first witness, Chad Olson's wife, Nicole.
I see his eyes were just glazed over, and I knew at that moment. But I tell him, Chad, me and Lexi need you. Please hang in there. We need you.
Curtis Reeves, a 71-year-old retired cop, shot and killed 43-year-old Chad Olson inside a Florida movie theater. The two men were arguing because Olson was using his cell phone during movie previews. After Olson threw a bag of popcorn at Reeves, Reeves pulled out a gun and shot Olson in the chest. 8 years later, Curtis Reeves stood trial for second-degree murder. Would the former cop spend the rest of his life in prison? After opening statements, prosecutors began presenting their case.
You got your next witness?
Yes, Nicole Olson.
The very first prosecution witness out of the gate is Nicole Olson, the wife of the victim. She shared a perspective that was unique, not only being the wife of the victim, but also a victim herself. She was poised, she was direct in the way that she delivered, and at times emotional, recalling the death of her husband that happened right next to her.
After you became aware that someone was behind you, we had the previews playing, was your husband, Chad, was his phone out?
Yes.
All right. Was he talking on the phone?
No.
Making a call? All right. Did he have it like you explained in his left hand?
Yes.
What did you see him doing?
Just the light low. He wasn't holding it up or waving it around. It was just kind of lower in his lap.
At some point in time, you heard something from behind you.
Correct.
What was said?
A demand to put the phone away.
How did your husband respond? What words did he say?
He says, "What's your problem?" The movie hasn't even started yet.
Did your husband use any profanity?
No.
Did your husband turn towards the direction where that voice was coming from?
Oh, no.
Based on the tone and the demeanor of the voices that you heard, what were you thinking?
Why is this still going on? The phone was away. This should be over.
As your husband begins to stand, you began to do what with your left hand?
As I'm standing, I reach over. Just to tap his arm or tap him.
As you are standing up and your arm starts to move over, do you feel a sensation in your hand?
Yes. It felt like my hand was on fire. It felt like my hand was blown off. It happened so fast. Chad takes a couple steps and he collapses. So I hold it together enough to get back to him in front of him where I can look over the aisle at him on the ground. And I see his eyes were just glazed over, and I knew at that moment. But I tell him, "Chad, and Lexi, need you, please hang in there, we need you." And then I started to lose it, so I walked back away from the scene.
I think that her authenticity was the shining star. She spoke from a way that only someone who's lived this experience can really come from and present like.
The prosecution brought in a parade of moviegoers to explain to this jury what they saw, heard, and felt in that moment before and after the shooting death of Chad Olson. They had different perspectives, different vantage points inside of that theater, but bringing this jury inside of that dark space with booming noise all around.
First thing I saw was a light from her cell phone.
And I could see a light.
I believe it was on his lap. He said something along the lines of, "I'm texting my babysitter," or "I'm texting my daughter's babysitter."
Did you ever hear Mr. Olson threaten Mr. Reeves?
No, I did not hear him say that.
All right. Did you ever hear him drop the...
I did not hear any curse words that day.
Do you remember if there was, I'm not going to say the word, but I think word in there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what you heard.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever see Mr. Reeves with his hand out and Mr. Olson chest almost on his hand and Mr. Reeves going, "Whoa, whoa, whoa," or "No, no, no"?
No, sir. Did you ever see Mr. Olson climbing over his chair?
No, I did not.
Did you ever see him throw a punch?
No, I did not.
Did you ever see him throw an object?
No, I did not.
He reached across and grabbed popcorn from Mr. Reeves and flipped it back in his face.
They reached to grab something and then thrown.
Well, the first thing I knew, popcorn went flying, And almost immediately, I saw Mr. Reeves' hand come up. And then I thought, oh my God, he shot him.
So popcorn's in the air.
Popcorn's in the air.
What's the next thing that happens?
Flash shot.
And what was it that you heard the defendant say?
Throw popcorn in my face.
When you saw the popcorn fly, what was the next thing you saw?
Immediately after you heard the gunshot and saw the flash.
I seen him flick a popcorn, and within just a second, I seen a muzzle blast and sound of a firearm.
The popcorn didn't have time to come down, and his arm came up.
And at any time did you see Mr. Olson climbing into the defendant's room?
No, sir.
At any point in time, did you see, other than the popcorn flip, Mr. Olson throw anything at the defendant?
I did not.
You could tell from the barrage of witnesses that the prosecution had was that whatever happened was very quick, and almost everyone's shocked that it happened. So it's very easy to muddy up the water by saying these people could not have really observed everything that happened because it was way too quick.
Prosecutors made sure to point out to this jury the lack of physical injuries on the body of Curtis Reeves. They highlighted that popcorn all over the ground, and they brought in a detective to play for them the words of this defendant immediately after the shooting once he was interviewed by police.
And I'm leaning back in my chair, so he kept on hollering, and I'm not sure what he said, to be honest with you. That led me to believe he was going to kick my ass. So I'm looking briefly. I know I can't go anywhere. So I'm leaning all the way back in my chair as far as I can to get away from him. And suddenly he's virtually on top of me. My left arm is out in front of me, and I think I'm saying either no, 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 or whoa, 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 one or the other. Suddenly my head was to the right, so he hit me with something.
So prior to the decision being made to arrest Curtis Reeves, you knew exactly what witnesses had been interviewed and what they had said.
Not by name, sir, but I was under the impression when I left that meeting that no witnesses that saw a punch being thrown, no witnesses that saw a cell phone being thrown, and that's when the determination was made to make the arrest.
At this time, the state would rest.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rosenwalter.
The prosecution called 15 witnesses before they rested their case in chief, using their testimony to hammer home for this jury that this was a former cop who lost his temper over popcorn rather than a feeble old man, as the defense was going to characterize him, someone who was fearful of a looming figure and reacted in self-defense.
Coming up, the defense case, Curtis Reeves facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison takes the stand in his own defense.
I'm looking up at this guy, and he looked like a monster standing there. I figured that this was the end of the line for me.
A Wisconsin woman accused of killing her friend with eye drops.
Was the victim trying to commit suicide,
or was she murdered for money? The Eye Drops murder trial. Live coverage weekdays at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
3187.
Retired police officer Curtis Reeves went on trial in February of 2022 for killing 43-year-old Chad Olson inside a suburban Tampa, Florida movie theater. Prosecutors told jurors that Reeves lost his temper after Chad Olson threw a bag of popcorn at him during an argument. Attorneys for Reeves had a much different story to tell about a botched investigation and a fearful old man who acted in self-defense.
Mr. Escobar?
Your Honor, the defense would call Detective Aaron Smith. Detective, you are taught in your profession to and how to respond to life-threatening situations, correct?
Yes, sir.
And one of the things you're going to look at is you're going to look at environment, right? You want to know what environment you're in, right?
Yes, sir.
A cell phone on that top row, let's call it row A.
Yes, sir.
And that cell phone was towards the middle of that row, is that correct?
Yes, it was.
But since you didn't know what seat Mr. Reeves was, you really didn't know the significance of that cell phone at that time.
Yes, I knew them to be important, but no, I guess I did not know in relation to where they were seated where that was.
Nobody even told you that Mr. Reeves had possibly been struck with a phone.
While I was in the crime scene, I don't recall anybody telling me that. If by the end of that day, I don't know for sure when I learned it.
For this defense, this case was not about popcorn, but rather about a cell phone, something they said that was thrown by this victim, and that's what created the defendant's reaction. They also showed that photo of the cell phone laying on the floor of the theater multiple times to this jury and attacked the investigation, one they say was botched by police in the way they handled that scene.
Explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what contamination of witnesses entails.
Witness contamination deals with not wanting witnesses to talk with one another about what happened, so that each person that you interview and get information from is giving you their recollection of what happened.
You would agree that it is important to ask the witnesses that you're interviewing whether they have spoken to other witnesses about what those witnesses had seen. So you would agree that's important?
I would agree that is important, yes, sir.
And in fact, not only is it important, you normally do it.
Yes, sir.
But you didn't do it on this investigation.
No, sir.
There is surveillance video inside of this theater, and it's important to the defense. They bring in a huge screen to place right in front of the jury box so they can see up close what was captured. The problem with this video is it's grainy, it's delayed. There are parts that skip. It's really difficult for anyone, even inside of the courtroom, to figure out exactly what's going on without help. The defense had an expert to try and get the jury to understand what they are seeing. Also, to help round out their case, they brought in a use of force expert, Roy Bedard, who testified that this defendant, because of his age, acted reasonably in the wake of this threat.
If there's an individual that you don't know anything about them, how does that factor into this threat assessment?
The evaluation of all of those circumstances under threat are going to make you assume the very worst and to prepare for the very worst. Sometimes that preparation may be running away if you have an outlet. Other times it may be that you're forced to engage because there's nowhere else to go.
Dr. Bedard, do you have an opinion as to whether Curtis Reeves discharged his firearm on January 13th, 2014 in the movie theater in response to Mr. Olson throwing a popcorn bag at him? Do you have an opinion as to that?
Yes.
And what is your opinion?
That's not why he discharged his firearm.
What I like about use of force experts is they do give the context to a jury who doesn't have that context. In this case, I thought he did a pretty good job. Again, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback. Walk in there and say, look, it's a hyper-stressed situation. Even cops who are trained have a difficult time acting properly under times of stress. Certainly, in effect, an old guy who was a former cop would have the same concerns at all. So it's a real double-edged sword, the way I was looking at that testimony being presented.
Before this trial, Vivian Reeves confirmed that in the moment after this shooting, she turned to her husband and asked him why he'd fired, telling him that he can't shoot a gun in a theater with people, and that his response was that he couldn't talk about it with her right then. That didn't come out in her testimony in front of this jury. Rather, she emphasized the fear she felt in the moment during that verbal altercation from Ted Olson.
It seemed like his whole upper body was leaning towards Curtis.
And when you observed that motion, how did it make you feel in terms of what it looked like to you?
I thought he was coming over, and it just freaked me out. I was terrified. I didn't know what happened, and I couldn't believe it. I was never been that scared before in all my life.
Now, were you scared because of Mr. Olson coming towards your husband?
That's when it started.
Did you look on the ground and see anything?
I did.
What did you see?
I saw a cell phone and popcorn.
Okay. And where was the cell phone located?
It was between Curtis's feet. It wasn't the picture that I've seen. It wasn't that close. Like if this was the ledge, in the pictures I've seen, it looked pretty close, but it was further back when I saw it.
She was a solid witness for her husband. She came across as someone very credible and also someone who would have been fearful in that moment. You could sense that from her in her testimony. The defense called as their last witness Curtis Reeves. walking to the stand with his cane, one that he didn't have during this shooting incident, but one that a later surgery required him to use. It's a contrast to see him walk up with that cane, but also against his towering figure in front of this jury.
Now, Mr. Reeves, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what happens at this very moment.
As I sit down, he's still talking loudly, and he's facing away from me. I can pick up a word every now and then, but I don't know what he's actually saying. And a movement caught me off on the right side of my eye, and I turned my head to look at him, and almost immediately he had turned and was on his feet, and I had something between me and the theater screen that I saw just a flash of a reflection off of, and then everything went kind of fuzzy.
Did you believe at that point that you had been hit?
Yes, sir, I did.
At that moment, did it appear that he was coming into your space?
I noticed that he was standing up. He was yelling a lot of profanities. There was threats and who's a do you think you are? I was texting my daughter. The word seemed to be his primary vocabulary at that point, because this guy is very volatile and active. He's trying to come over the seats. I'm sitting down in a completely defenseless position. I'm looking up at this guy, and he looked like a monster standing there.
Why at that point were you just focused on him?
He was a threat. He was a threat that was very close to me. And the closer a threat is to you, the less time you have to react to anything that happens. And I've never been encountered by somebody exhibiting that uncontrolled anger or rage. At some point at that time, I had no other choice, and I reached for my pistol.
Now, after reaching from your pistol, do you see some hands coming in your direction?
I'm pretty much zeroed in on him, and I know I made some comments at some point in there as this was happening. It was very quick, in my mind, it was, the event itself was very fast. He was so much above me and so full of rage, I guess you could say, that he was going to strike me with all the strength that he had or he could put together. I figured that this was the end of the line for me. I thought that at the very least I'd be seriously injured, if not killed.
He may not have ever fired his gun before, but I am quite assured, without even knowing his professional record, that he's testified before at length in a number of the cases that, he ultimately handled as an officer. And to the extent that you have that experience, that professional experience with testifying, it helps you come across in a way that can be convincing, come across a little bit more meek, not combative. He knows how to handle himself on cross. He knows how to handle himself on direct.
Did you shoot Mr. Olson because of popcorn?
I shot Mr. Olson because I thought he was going to seriously injure me or potentially kill me.
Curtis Reeves called this the scariest moment in his life. This despite being a law enforcement officer for 27 years, dealing with all sorts of conflicts. A statement, something the prosecution jumped all over during cross-examination.
All right, your testimony is that you intentionally shot Chad Olson, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you kill him out of rage?
No, sir, I did not.
How about blind fury?
No, sir, I killed him out of fear.
You didn't just snap and kill him?
No, sir.
How many times are you saying that Mr. Olson attacked you?
He either hit me in the face, and I suspect very, very, very strongly, rather than a fist, it was a phone. You saw him grab the popcorn. I was not aware of the popcorn, but I was aware that he was trying to grab a hold of me.
Okay, so...
And then he pitched it back. I'm not sure I saw that, but I did see him coming over the seat with his fist at the instant he got shot.
You remember when you were in the back of that cruiser, and you said, as I'm sitting back in here, I'm second-guessing myself?
Oh, yes,
Did he
sir.
even hit me?
Yes, sir. I've second-guessing it for the last 8 years. Anybody that's involved in something like that and they don't second guess it, it's got to be nuts.
Okay, but what I'm asking you is not if you second guess that. You second guessed the very fact that you were even hit.
I second guessed every step of that encounter. Yes, sir, I did.
We are still talking about a death over cell phone use and popcorn in a movie theater. There should be a lot of remorse here. I think that it will be, I would be shocked if it was reasonable to respond in the way that he did.
Coming up, both sides deliver closing arguments.
All across the theater, they heard the defendant say, "Throw popcorn in my face." That's why we know this case is truly about a man killing another man over a popcorn toss.
You don't get a punch first and then you get the justifiable right to defend yourself.
As the murder trial for retired police officer Curtis Reeves came to a close, jurors had to decide if the ex-cop was frightened or angry when he shot and killed 43-year-old Chad Olson inside a movie theater. Before the case went to the jury, both sides had one more chance to plead their cases during closing arguments.
Curtis Reeves was 71 years old when this shooting incident happened inside of the movie theater. He's 79 years old once he faced a jury at trial. It was a packed courtroom in the gallery listening to the final arguments from both sides over whether this was murder or self-defense.
Man killed over popcorn toss. When you think about it, you think that should be on a headline of a newspaper. Big, bold, black letters. Man killed over popcorn toss. Or you're standing in a checkout line in the grocery store, and you look at that. Or you're surfing on the internet, and you see that, and you click it, and you think, well, that's sensationalized. No one could ever think that would take place. Because in this case, we know that's what happened. All across the theater, they heard the defendant say, "Throw popcorn in my face." That's why we know this case is truly about a man killing another man over a popcorn toss. And I submit to you that both versions of the events that the defendant told you are absolutely 100% not credible. And I submit that you know that already. The defendant wants you to believe this. A retired captain from the Tampa Police Department who's been involved in robbery, homicide, fugitives, the Special Weapons and Tactics Team, also known as SWAT. Remember during his testimony what he's saying. Man, it's eye-opening. When I first started, the level of violence and the dangerousness, you wouldn't believe it. Yet that very same person wants you to believe the person that scared them the most is a father and a husband that said, "Leave me alone, I'm texting my daughter." Maybe he threw an in there. You can't kill anyone for a that's for sure. Is it reasonable to believe that that person, Chad Olson, scared him the most in his entire life in that moment in theater number 10? Now, what did all the witnesses tell you? All of them told you, yeah, it was dark. It was muted, it was dimmed, but we could see. We could see. We could see 5 seats down. We could see 10 seats down. When we get into the theater, we can see. That's the real evidence in this case. And what they saw was the defendant started and ended. What they saw was the defendant kill another man over a popcorn toss. And you know what? When people get older, they do age, and their bodies do change. In fact, the defendant was older, and his body changed. Doesn't mean a single thing. Let's say he was sitting in a theater with 2 broken legs and a rotator cuff injury, and someone threw popcorn on him. Oh, well, now that he's got 2 broken legs, he can shoot and kill somebody. That totally makes sense. You know what? His back's hurting really bad. He's got a herniated disc. Popcorn goes on him. Yep, absolutely. We can kill him. Sure, you get older, you can just kill people. But what's he say? He says that when Chad Olson stands up and the popcorn falls by the wayside, it's at that time this attack happens that's not seen on video or by anybody in the theater, including his wife. And he says at that time is when he was hit by the phone. But he doesn't really know, because when he looked down, he saw the phone, so he just put 2 and 2 together. But on the stand, he talks about this phone attack happening 8 seconds before. How in the world is that? He changed his story. Self-serving stories don't equal self-defense. Is it reasonable to believe that this defendant, with all his background, training, experience, felt that when that popcorn bag was grabbed from him, he was gonna die? He killed them because of the popcorn, because he said that right after the shooting. Throw popcorn in my face. He knew what happened. It's not just hands coming towards him. He knew what it was. And when you watch the video, you see the popcorn and you see from the hip the shot. That's this case.
He started it and he ended it. Great framing device. And then when he gets to the heart of the matter, you know, you can't claim you're old and shoot somebody. He made that point really well. You know, if somebody had broken legs and was sitting there and somebody throws popcorn on him, you can't shoot him. Somebody has a herniated disc, you can't shoot him. If you're old, you can't shoot him. I think he did an excellent job of making his case and of dicing up what the defense is expecting to present.
Mr. Escobar?
Thank you, Your Honor. Counsel. You don't judge a person until you have walked a mile in their shoes. It's a very wise old saying, and one that actually is embodied in the laws of self-defense, not only in the state of Florida, but in this country. The Constitution of our great country embodies the right and the law of being able to defend yourself. The law of self-defense requires each and every one of us to stand in the shoes of Curtis Reeves, a 71-year-old man at the time of this incident. Curtis Reeves reasonably believed that the force was necessary to prevent, circle it, prevent. You don't get a punch first and then you get the justifiable right to defend yourself. That's not how it works. The danger facing Curtis Reeves need not have been actual. And not once in his entire 27 years of law enforcement, not once, did Curtis Reeves pull a gun and fire that gun at anyone. For 27 years, he's not a trigger-happy, retired police officer. If we were in seat 9A, what would we be seeing? We'd be seeing those hands coming at you. That's what we would be seeing if we were in seat 9A. Why would Mrs. Olson have to hold her own husband back? A tragedy took place that day. Mr. Olson died. Her family lost a husband. Child lost a father.
The defense's closing argument went a lot longer and compared to the prosecution's in front of this jury. The defense laser focused on something different, a cell phone lying on the floor of that movie theater. They say that is what was thrown at this defendant, not the popcorn.
Clear in the other row, row A. Chad Olson, at that very moment. A coincidence? The phone? Where did we find that phone? In between Mr. Reeves' legs, immediately after the shot.
Attention continued to build in the courtroom as we got closer and closer to a verdict watch.
Coming up, the jury gets the case working into the night before coming to a decision.
State of Florida versus Curtis Judson Reeves. Verdict. We, the jury, find as follows.
The The jury started deliberating the fate of 78-year-old former police officer Curtis Reeves on February 25th, 2022. It was a Friday evening. The next day, Reeves' daughter, who had attended the trial, was getting married. A not guilty verdict would mean that Reeves would be able to walk his daughter down the aisle. But if the jury came back guilty, it would send him to prison for life. Reeves and his attorney sat in an empty courtroom waiting for a decision, and Court TV was on the air as the drama started to unfold.
This is a rare night, a late night jury deliberation. We are on a verdict watch.
What we've heard from the judge so far is that they will be allowed to deliberate as late as they want. We could go into the midnight hour if these jurors prefer. There is this push, it seems, for them to be allowed to wrap up today if they can.
It's dark, it's quiet, but at any moment, folks, it could happen. That's the way verdicts happen.
The jury deliberates for under 3 hours before returning their verdict in the movie Popcorn murder trial. The verdict marks the culmination of a 10-day trial that included the defendant taking the stand as part of a bitterly fought self-defense case that many considered a long shot.
You can see the jury's been out just over 3 hours. Don't forget about Nicole Olson, who was there when her husband was shot and killed by Curtis Reeves. She's waited 8 years for this trial to happen. 8 years of waking up without her husband there. 8 years of raising their daughter.
Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, I appreciate your being calm and quiet participation during the last few weeks. So let's manage to do that one more time. No outbursts of any sort, and we'll bring them in. Madam Clerk, would you please publish the verdict?
In the courts of the 6th Judicial Circuit in and for Pasco County, Florida, State of Florida versus Curtis Judson Reeves, Count 1, murder in the 2nd degree. Verdict. We, the jury, finds as follows. The defendant is not guilty, so say we all this 25th day of February 2022, juror number 2, foreperson. Count 2, aggravated battery. Verdict. We, the jury, finds as follows. The defendant is not guilty. So say we all this 25th day of February 2022, juror number 2, foreperson.
All right, Mr. Reeves, the jury having returned a verdict of not guilty as to count 1 and count 2, you are free to go.
The Olson family settled a civil lawsuit over the shooting death of Chad Olson before this criminal trial went forward. The details of that amount are undisclosed. Curtis Reeves, a free man, and that decision creating a reaction, an emotional one, from these parties. Nicole Olson quickly left that courtroom without speaking to anyone, clearly devastated by the news. The family of Curtis Reeves hugging each other, embracing 8 years later, getting this decision and clearing his name. Reeves and his attorneys reacted to that jury verdict. Rick Escobar and Dino Michaels, I first want to ask you, Rick, tell me what Curtis Reeves' first words were to you after hearing this verdict.
You know, after being 8 years, basically in confinement in his home, it was so wonderful. His daughter's getting married tomorrow. He's going to walk his daughter down the aisle. But he's never wavered. He's always believed in the system. You know, as a law enforcement officer for 27 years, he believed in the system. And so, you know, I can tell you that, Curtis has always told us that he wanted to tell his story. And I think this sends a message, and I think it sends a message to the community that, we can't abuse the elderly.
It was a sad day for everybody on both sides. It never should have happened. I never wanted it to happen. I never planned for it. I never even in my wildest dreams ever thought anything like this would ever happen. And it, like I say, I feel as touching for them as I do for my own family.
I guess as long as the individual just says, hey, I'm in fear, I guess that's enough to convince someone that they're in fear. even though, Mr. Reeves is not a tiny man. I understand that he may have been a senior citizen at the time, but he was 6'2", 270 pounds, former karate champion, as he indicated on multiple occasions, former SWAT team member and in charge of SWAT. If anyone could have defended themselves, and even forget that, if anyone could have de-escalated a situation and or understood how to remove themselves from that situation, that's this man.
It's been a long 8 years, and I couldn't wait for it to be over with. I'm very proud of my team of lawyers here that did a fantastic job in bringing out the truth, and hopefully you guys will put the truth in the papers for a change.
Curtis Reeves attended his daughter's wedding day after the verdict. Chad Olson's daughter continues her life without her father, all because of a movie theater fight over a phone and a bag of popcorn.
I need the police to answer immediately. My wife and child got badly.
They did check them?
Yes, sir.
This is official that they're dead?
Is that the last time you talked to him?
Yes.
I tried to turn him over, and I don't know, I figured it out.
There was blood, there was brain, skull, hair, and there's nothing on him.
You've got enough evidence to convict Alec Murdaugh. Where is it?
My son was in a boat wreck a few months back.
Who was the last person you saw driving?
I'm pretty sure it's Paul.
He's not broke by anybody's standards.
It's a guinea.
There's a chicken. And I lied about being down there.
I wouldn't have defended Alex if I believed for 1 minute he killed Paul. I can tell you that much.
Did you take this gun or any gun like it and blow your son's brains out?
No, I did not. I'm innocent. I would never hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never hurt my son, Paul.
When the life of Alec Murdaugh began to unravel, it brought down a South Carolina legal dynasty of power and influence going back decades. After years of drug use and stealing millions from friends and clients, Murdaugh would find himself accused of the unthinkable, the murders of his wife Maggie and youngest son Paul. This is Victim to Verdict. 70 miles west of Charleston is South Carolina's Low Country, a mix of small towns and open space. It includes a 1,700-acre property at 4147 Moselle Road, owned in June of 2021 by the Murdaugh family, Alec and Maggie and their sons, Buster and Paul.
Moselle was their most recent property, and it was kind of a hunting plantation type place. Great setup for hunting everything, and not Maggie's favorite place to be, but the boys loved it.
The Murdaughs owned several properties, but Moselle was a favorite, especially for Alec and Paul.
I think the plan was for Paul to take over Moselle one day.
He loved outdoors, hunting, fishing, hanging around. Really enjoyed the farm out there at Moselle.
They like to hunt and fish together. I mean, they drink beer together.
That's Paul's laugh just before 8 o'clock Monday evening, June 7th, 2021, recording his father, Alec.
What you see me doing is fooling with a fruit tree that I'd been tending to, and it was falling over, and Pawpaw was laughing at me, trying to get it back upright.
Just over an hour later, Paul and his mother, Maggie, were dead.
Hampton County 911, where's your emergency?
This is Alec Murdaugh at 4147 Moselle Road. I need the police to answer immediately. My wife and child got badly.
There was a caller who stated he had found his wife and son shot.
Sergeant Daniel Green, with his body camera rolling, was one of the first on scene.
I could see Mr. Murdaugh down at the end of the driveway. As I approached toward him, I could see the male victim laying on the ground to my left, as well as the female victim on the ground to my right.
The scene is secured.
Got a Whiskey Fox, Whiskey Mike. Turn around for me.
I don't have anything.
Okay, yes, sir, I see that. Okay.
After telling Sergeant Green about a shotgun he grabbed for protection,
That is loaded.
Okay.
You might want to unload it.
Alec shared with the sergeant who he thought killed his wife and son.
His immediate reaction was to start telling me about an incident that had happened with his son with a boating accident. From inside the house?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I went and got. This is a long story. My son was in a boat wreck a few months back. He's been getting threats. Most of it's been benign stuff we didn't take serious.
Okay.
You know, he's been getting like punched. I know that's somebody. I know that's what it is.
Alec had also mentioned that boat crash to the 911 operator.
He's been being threatened by, my son had a boat wreck. He's been being threatened for months and months and months.
There was something else Sergeant Green said he noticed about Alec.
He did not appear to be crying. He was upset, but I did not see any visible tears.
Captain Jason Chapman and Detective Laura Rutland arrive on scene a short time later.
The first thing that stood out to me was his clothes. He was so clean because it was a very graphic scene. It was a mess around Paul. It was soaking wet. There was blood. There was brain, skull, hair. And he had said that he tried to turn him over and he checked him, and there's nothing on him.
We see shell casings scattered around the ground that are obviously rifle casings. There's some evidence to support that at least one or more shots into Paul were from a shotgun. That means two weapons. So were there two people? Are there other people that may be injured? We can see that Maggie, there was nothing laying beside her. We looked closely. Again, we didn't move her. So we went over to Paul, and I had a couple of the deputies there and a detective lift the sheet. That was simply because we're trying to determine, do we have somebody in the woods? You know, where are the weapons? Was it a murder-suicide? Was it just a straight murder?
Somebody going to check them?
Yes, sir. They've already checked them.
They did check them?
Yes, sir.
This is official that they're dead?
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
Both Maggie and Paul had been shot in the head. Paul with a shotgun, Maggie with a blackout rifle. Maggie Murdaugh was 52. Paul was 22.
She loved her family. She loved her boys. Buster and Paul were her world. Paul was a sweet, sweet boy.
There were so many different scenarios it could have been that night. So in my view, everybody was a suspect.
Investigators recorded an initial interview with Alec, and for the third time, he brought up the boat accident.
What comes to my mind is my son Paul was in a boat wreck a couple years ago, and there's been he was charged with being arrested for being a driver. There's been a lot of negative publicity about that.
While investigators may have been zeroing in on Alec Murdaugh, his family and friends, including his brothers and son Buster, were immediately by his side.
Yeah, his demeanor was, he was destroyed. He was heartbroken. I walked in the door and saw him and gave him a hug and just broken down.
I jumped out and ran to him.
And what was his condition, Alex?
Oh, he was just broken. I mean, distraught. I mean, everybody was. There were a few other people there, but he just, all we did is hugged and cried.
For those that knew the Murdaugh family and really knew Alec, there was just no way he could kill Maggie and Paul.
They loved each other. I've never seen that man even raise his voice at his wife or kids.
From your observation, how would you describe Alex's relationship with Maggie?
It was good. It wasn't perfect, but Maggie was happy.
And how would you describe Alex's relationship with Paul?
They had a very good relationship. They were kind of best friends in a way.
It would take a lot more to convince the family that he did it. They knew how he cared and loved for Maggie and Paul and Buster, and then they were his life. His head was blown off. I mean, no father could do that to the son, and I can assure you, no Murdaugh could do it to a Murdaugh.
Coming up, the boat accident.
Who was the last person you saw driving?
I'm very sure it's Paul.
And Alec Murdaugh's secret life exposed.
He told me that he had been addicted to opioids. He had been stealing money from his clients in the firm.
Plus, the timeline and the video that would change everything.
Hey, Bubba.
We explored all various possibilities, but the roads all came back to Alec.
When's the last time you talked to Maggie? Hour and a half ago, probably 2 hours ago. Okay, you said about 2 hours ago you talked to them? Approximately, yes, ma'am, approximately.
Alec Murdaugh claimed he had an alibi the night his wife and son were shot to death. In 3 interviews with South Carolina law enforcement, Murdaugh said after having dinner with Maggie and Paul, they went down to the kennels and he stayed behind, taking a nap in the house before leaving to visit his mother, who has Alzheimer's.
I stayed in the house.
Okay.
And I was watching TV, looking at my phone, and I actually fell asleep on the couch.
Okay.
I knew she'd gone to the kennel. I was at the house. I left the house and went to my mom's.
When the dispatcher asked you when was the last time you saw Maggie or told Maggie, you said an hour and a half, 2 hours ago.
I think that's probably about right.
Every time he gave a time reference, he was off, but he always said, my phone, you can get it from my phone.
When y'all get my phone, you know, I think one of the first things I did when I got up was call Maggie because I was going to my mom's.
Investigators relied less on Alec and more on hard evidence, which included the Murdaugh family phones and the movements from his Chevy Suburban.
The cell phone and GPS records in this case were so important, especially when you compare it to Alec Murdaugh's version of events. Sometimes it helped him out, it matched up with his story, but other times it didn't.
According to cell phone records, Alec arrived at the Moselle property at 6:42 p.m. This as Maggie was making her way to Moselle from the family beach house in Edisto. Paul, meanwhile, arrives a little after 7 p.m.
We rode around the duck pond. I mean, we just, you know, we rode the property.
Yes, sir.
You know, we rode the property.
At 7:39, Paul records Alec working with a tree on the property. Paul sends that video on Snapchat about 15 minutes later at 7:56, showing Alec wearing a blue button-up shirt and khaki pants, a completely different outfit from the shorts and t-shirt he was wearing when police arrived on scene.
Paul's Snapchat video is crucial to the case, not only for the timeline of events on the day of the murders, but also for what Alec Murdaugh is wearing in that video.
At what point in the evening did you change clothes?
I'm not sure. What time of day was that? I would have thought I'd already changed.
Maggie arrives at Moselle at 8:17. Alec claims the family had dinner together in the house, and then Maggie and Paul went to the kennels.
You know, we hung around the house for a little while. I know that Maggie went to the kennels. I don't know exactly where Paul went, but he left the house too. I stayed in the house.
Okay.
And I was watching TV, looking at my phone, and I actually fell asleep on the couch.
Okay.
Alec's cell phone records him taking 283 steps just before getting into his Chevy Suburban at 9:07 p.m. He would arrive at his parents' home in Alameda at 9:22.
Checked on my mom, talked with Shelly for a few minutes. You know,
Shelly is
the caregiver.
Okay.
Inside the home at Alameda, along with his mother, was Shelly Smith, a caretaker who had been working with Alec's ailing parents for years. She told investigators that Alex was there and stayed for about 20 minutes.
How long would you say you were at your mom's that night?
45 minutes, an hour.
Alec leaves Alameda at 9:43 and makes it back to Moselle at 10 p.m., reaching a max speed of 80 miles per hour. 5 minutes later, Alec drives to the kennels and calls 911 within 20 seconds of pulling up.
This is Alec Murdaugh at 4147 Moselle Road. I need the police to answer immediately. My wife and child got badly.
We know Alec called 911 within 20 seconds of pulling up to the kennels, but he told the 911 dispatcher that he had already checked the bodies of Maggie and Paul.
I'd already touched them trying to get to see if they were breathing.
Alec's phone, for the most part, matches his story. But his son Paul's phone would destroy it, and Alex's claim that he was never at the dog kennels the night of the murders.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth!
At 8:44, Paul Murdaugh records this video at the dog kennels, and anyone who was familiar with the Murdaughs could identify three voices: Paul, Maggie, and Alec.
Hey, Bubba. It's a guinea.
It's a chicken. Come here, Cash. Come here, Bubba. Cash.
It's hard to get around, being at the murder scene with the victims just moments before they died and then lying about it. What innocent person does that? And of course, we explored all various possibilities, but the roads all came back to Alec.
The kennel video, in and of itself, is favorable evidence for Alec. It just depicts a family down at the kennels. There's no tension, there's no fight, there's no anger, there's no threats, there's no nothing. Under the state's theory, within minutes of that, Alec guns his wife and son down. For what reason? Still no one can give it a reason.
You think I feel Paul? I have to go where the evidence and the facts take me, and I don't have anything that points to anybody else at this time. So does that mean that I am a suspect? You were still in this.
Alec Murdaugh being the husband and the first person to call, naturally you have to ask those questions. And they worked hard to get him out of the circle. And as he continues to talk, his stories just don't make sense.
Coming up, Alec Murdaugh's life begins to unravel.
I was already struggling with bills, and I knew I couldn't do it.
David Trones claimed to be a millionaire, but when his wife realized it was a lie, she ended up dead in her bathroom.
You have fake cried over this woman's death.
Now he stands trial for her brutal murder. The Bathtub Murder Trial, weekday mornings on Court TV.
Hampton County 911 was an emergency.
I got a flat tire, and I stopped, and somebody stopped to help me. And when I turned my back, they tried to shoot me.
This is Alec Murdaugh after calling 911 3 months after the murders of his wife Maggie and son Paul. Murdaugh claims he's been shot in the head along the side of a road a few miles from his home.
You need EMS? Yes, I can't drive. Okay, and I'm bleeding a lot.
At first, it might seem that the person responsible for the murder of Alec's wife and son were now after him. But that would not be the case.
There's a man on the side of the road with blood all over him. He's waving his hands. He looks fine, but it kind of looks like a setup, so we didn't stop.
Months after the murder of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, Alec's life began to spiral out of control. Murdaugh was forced to resign from his family law firm for stealing client funds. Then, on September 6th, 2021, Alec announced he was admitting himself into a rehab facility to treat decades of drug abuse. Murdaugh would then admit that he asked this man, Curtis Eddie Smith, to shoot him on the side of the road so that his surviving son, Buster, could collect a $10 million life insurance policy. Shortly after, Alec Murdaugh would be arrested for fraud.
Your Honor, he has had a tremendous opioid addiction. The death of his wife and son have put him over the edge in terms of that addiction, and that is why one of the major reasons he's considering having himself killed.
The arrest would set off a chain of events leading to several more charges of financial crimes. Then, on July 14th, 2021, over a year and a half after the murder of his wife and son, Alec was charged for fatally shooting Maggie with a rifle and Paul with a shotgun.
Mr. Murdaugh, did you kill your wife and son?
If you didn't do it, who did?
In July of 2022, Alec Murdaugh, accused of murdering his wife Maggie and son Paul, appeared before Judge Clifton Newman for an arraignment.
What say you, Richard Alec Murdaugh? Are you guilty or not guilty?
The sight of a Murdaugh in handcuffs was for many hard to believe.
How shall you be tried?
By God and my country.
The Murdaugh name for decades has been synonymous with wealth, power, and the law. Dating back 86 years, a Murdaugh has been the top prosecutor for the 14th District of South Carolina, all the way up until Alex's father, Randolph III, retired in 2006. There were even Murdaugh portraits hanging in the courtroom, which Judge Newman had to remove.
Mr. Murdaugh's grandfather's portrait hangs in the courtroom. It should be removed.
Alec Murdaugh attended the University of South Carolina. It's where he met his wife, Maggie. The two were married in 1993, the year Alec graduated from law school. In 1996, their first son, Buster, was born, and 3 years later, their son, Paul. While Alec was never solicitor, he did prosecute a few cases with his father and had a prosecutor's badge that he carried with him.
And who gave you that badge?
My father. I found that law enforcement oftentimes is friendlier when you're in law enforcement. I wanted to be a solicitor for a long time, but at the time when my dad retired, I was already struggling with pills, and I knew I couldn't do it.
Besides the drugs and the financial crimes, there was also the boat crash.
What bridge is Paul, what bridge is this? Paul, what bridge?
911, where's your emergency? Hello? Police, fire, EMS. Hello?
February 24th, 2019, at 2:30 in the morning, Paul Murdaugh and 5 of his friends in a boat owned by the Murdaughs crashed into a bridge.
We're in a boat crash on Arthur Street.
Whereabouts on Arthur Street?
In Arthur Street, the only bridge on Arthur Street.
What's going on?
We're in a boat crash. Female Mallory Beach is missing.
19-year-old Mallory Beach was thrown from the boat and died. Her body wasn't recovered until a week after the accident. Paul Murdaugh would face criminal charges, and the family of Mallory Beach was coming after the Murdaughs.
The Beaches wanted accountability from Alec, and they weren't going to stop with anything less.
On the day of the boat crash, there's surveillance video that captures Paul at a convenience store, and he uses his brother Buster's ID to purchase alcohol. And on his way out, he raises his arms and seems to be celebrating.
According to friends, after a night of drinking at a house party, the group was back on the boat. Surveillance video shows the group making a stop in downtown Beaufort, South Carolina. According to Miley Altman, who was on the boat, that stop was Paul's idea to get more alcohol.
Like at first, we didn't want to go, but Paul was like, you could kind of tell he was a little drunk and he wanted to go. And Morgan, that's his girlfriend, Morgan, they kind of got into it, fighting about it, and he was like, he just was very persistent about going up to Luther's and getting shot.
As the rest of the group waited outside, Paul Murdaugh and Connor Cook went into a bar and consumed shots of alcohol. Paul, at this point, according to his friends, was extremely intoxicated.
He gets drunk a lot, and it's just kind of like he just is a whole other person when he's drunk. And he does this thing with his hands where he spreads them apart and he can't keep them together.
That's Mallory Beach with her boyfriend, Anthony Cook, walking back to the boat.
In the video, there's this moment where Mallory Beach is with her boyfriend, Anthony Cook. They're having a good time. They're on their way back to the boat, and it's just heartbreaking to watch because we know that's the last hour of her life.
Once on board, friends say Paul began fighting over who should be driving.
No, he was yelling at Paul, and Paul was just like I said earlier, when he's drunk, he's determined to do something. He wouldn't let anybody else drive, and then Mallory wanted Anthony to drive. And
who wanted Anthony?
Mallory.
Okay.
The one who was sitting next to him. He's like, I want like, Anthony to drive, and Anthony was like, let me drive. And Paul was like, no, like, I'm not gonna let you drive because this is my boat.
Y'all know Alec Murdaugh?
Yeah, I know that name.
That's his son.
That's so driving the boat.
Good luck.
After the crash, Alec Murdaugh and his father, Randolph Murdaugh, showed up at the hospital. Alec had his solicitor badge out for everybody to see as he went room to room.
That night of the boat wreck, you say you don't remember putting your badge out, correct?
I don't even remember having my badge, and I specifically know that I didn't use the badge. You know, did I mean to do this? I'm not saying that I didn't.
Do you remember going around talking to the kids? The other kids that were on the boat?
Yeah. I talked to some of them.
According to statements from hospital staff, Paul was, quote, loud and rude and was cursing at ER staff. And Alec was, quote, walking throughout the ER trying to talk to all patients involved, introducing himself to ER staff. And told one of the kids, quote, we will figure this out. It will all be okay.
At this point, prosecutors believe that Alec was there for a couple of reasons. First, to defuse the situation, but also making the rounds, trying to establish that his son Paul was not the driver of that boat when it crashed.
On April 18th, 2019, on what would have been Mallory Beach's 20th birthday, Paul Murdaugh was charged with 3 felonies in connection with the boat case. He pled not guilty and was released on bond.
You know, amongst the family, none of us thought that he was driving the boat.
Coming up, the world watches as Alec Murdaugh goes on trial.
Everybody knows the Murdaughs. You know, it's a household name that's been here forever.
There's a tragic outcome in this case.
Civil trial that is the focus of the Netflix documentary Take Care of Maya.
How a misdiagnosis tore their family apart.
They continue to accuse Jack and Beata of being child abusers.
Jack called me and said Beata just hung herself.
Is the hospital they're suing responsible for what happened? The Take Care of Maya trial. Trial coverage weekday mornings at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
A year and a half after Maggie and Paul were killed, Alec Murdaugh was brought to the Colleton County, South Carolina courthouse to stand trial for the murders of his wife and son.
I'm a native South Carolinian, so I've been following the case. I know the Low Country well, and we're retired, so we had time to come down and just kind of participate, I guess.
I've just really gotten so obsessed with this. It's my first retirement adventure, and so I want to see the completion.
He walked in the room, and my heart just like sank. It was so crazy. That was very cool, but kind of eerie at the same time.
The trial began with opening statements, each side telling a very different story about Alec Murdaugh.
The evidence is going to be such that you're going to reach the inescapable conclusion that Alec murdered Maggie and Paul, that he was the storm, that the storm was coming for them. They died as a result.
This is Alec Murdaugh. And Alec was the loving father of Paul and the loving husband of Maggie. They decided that night he did it.
Men kill spouses too frequently. Men don't kill their adult sons very frequently unless it's like some argument. And there was no argument here. There's no fight here. And it's just, you know, it's mind-boggling how people think that Alec, who loved his family and that was his life, would have executed his son. And then for what reason?
Something else that didn't make sense, Paul was murdered with a shotgun, Maggie with a blackout rifle. Why would Alec or anyone else use 2 guns?
Big question. 1 shooter or 2? 2 guns, shotgun and an AR. Was there enough time to kill Paul and then find the AR and then ambush Maggie? Much more likely there were 2 people.
During the trial, both sides brought in experts to reconstruct the crime scene, offering different opinions on everything from where the shooter or shooters were standing to how tall they were.
One explanation would be 2 shooters. I'm sorry? Yes? I wasn't there. No. But it is a reasonable explanation, just like 1 shooter running up that way, correct?
This thing with the shooters being 5'2" or 5'4", you can't determine that from what our expert had said. And for somebody to try to determine the height seemed to just go a little too far.
Is it your expert opinion that a 6'4" shooter cannot be excluded from the murder of Maggie and Paul?
I see nothing that could exclude a 6'4" shooter.
Can you exclude two shooters?
I cannot include or exclude two shooters.
Can the defense include, to the exclusion of all other possibilities, two shooters?
Absolutely not.
Mr. Palmbach, do you have an opinion based upon more probably than not whether there was one or two shooters who murdered Maggie and Paul on the night of June 7th?
My opinion is the totality of the evidence is more suggestive of a two-shooter scenario.
Well, I wouldn't have defended Alex if I believed for 1 minute he killed Paul. I can tell you that much. I would not have done that. And so that's what I believed then. That's what I believe now.
Prosecutors argued that Murdaugh's life was unraveling. He was a drug addict who'd been stealing money from clients and his law partners for years. And Paul's boating accident, they argued, might have been the final straw.
Did he confess to you the truth of his life, that those of whom were close to him, no one knew?
He confessed to me things about him that I didn't know.
And you had no idea about any of that?
No, sir.
And he said it had been going on for years, the reality of his life.
He told me that he had been addicted to opioids, and I think he said either 420 or over 20 years.
But I think he did love Maggie. I think he did love Paul. But to sustain his lifestyle, his way of living, the person he really cared about most was Alex.
This case was unlike a normal murder case. You know, if Alec wasn't the killer, he would be our first witness, the grieving father who uncovered this scene. The murder case and the white-collar cases really started to converge and come to a peak.
After the boat case, did you notice any changes in Alec's behavior or his demeanor around the office?
That's when he started making some disbursements that he was stealing from that started getting sloppy.
And to call your next witness.
Then Alec Murdaugh decided to take the stand.
When a defendant takes the stand to testify, it changes everything. And that was certainly the case in this trial.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Murdaugh, did you take this gun or any gun like it and blow your son's brains out on June 7th or any day or any time?
No, I did not.
Did you shoot a .300 blackout into her head, causing her death?
Mr. Griffin, I didn't shoot my wife or my son anytime. Ever.
And you would agree with me that for years you were stealing money from clients?
I admit candidly in all of these cases, Mr. Waters, that I took money that was not mine, and I shouldn't have done it. I hate the fact that I did it.
Judge Newman's decision to allow in all of the financial crimes of Alec Murdaugh was huge. This allowed prosecutors to show to the jury that Alec Murdaugh was a habitual liar and had been so for years.
I know you want to get through it quicker, but we're not. So answer the question, please.
What I admit is that I misled them.
In 2019 alone, you stole about $3.7 million?
No, I think that's correct. You have charged me with murdering my wife and my son, and I've sat here for all these weeks listening to all this financial stuff that I did wrong, that I'm embarrassed by. But what I can tell you is that in all these financial situations, I stole money that was not my money. I misled people that I shouldn't have misled, and I did wrong.
Murdaugh admitted to years of lying and stealing, but maintained he would never murder his wife and son. But what about that kennel video?
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth!
Were you, in fact, at the kennels at 8:44 p.m. on the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
I was.
Did you lie to Sled Agent Owen and Deputy Laura Rutland on the night of June 7th and told them that you stayed at the house after dinner?
I did lie to them.
Alec gets on the witness stand and he admits that he's lied. He's lied about the financial schemes. He lied about being at the kennels. That is him in the kennel video. But then he wants the jury to believe him in that moment, believe him when he says he didn't murder his wife and his son.
Alec, why did you lie?
As my addiction evolved over time, I would get in these situations or circumstances where I would get paranoid thinking. That night, June 7th, after finding Mags and Paul, I'm sitting in a police car with David Owen asking me about my relationship with my wife and my son. And all those things coupled together after finding them, coupled with my distrust for SLED, caused me to have paranoid thoughts.
He has a long history of deception, and it goes to show just how much was on the line and what kind of stresses were on Mr. Murdaugh on June 7th.
Then it was time for closing arguments.
He's lied to everyone close to him, and he's good at it. He's fooled them all. And he fooled Maggie and Paul, too. And they paid for it with their lives.
You've heard weeks testimony about Alec's financial crimes, drug addiction, and lies. But after all that, the state has failed to provide a satisfactory answer to this question. Why? The state cannot provide an answer to this question because the answer is he would not, under any circumstances, murder those that meant the most to him. On behalf of Alex, on behalf of Buster, on behalf of Maggie, and on behalf of my friend Paul, I respectfully request that you do not compound a family tragedy with another. Thank you.
Coming up, the verdict.
I understand that there's a verdict. You may bring the jury.
And the Honorable Judge Clifton Newman.
I know you have to see Paul and Maggie during the night times when you're attempting to go to sleep.
Less than 3 hours after getting the case, the jury, deciding the fate of Alec Murdaugh, announced that they had reached a verdict.
Less than 3 hours, we had a verdict. Everyone outside the courthouse was a little surprised. The media rushed inside to grab a seat in the courtroom, but a lot of the members of the public who'd been there day in and day out filling the gallery had gone home for the evening, didn't realize that it would take such a short amount of time for this jury to reach a verdict, including some of the members of the Murdaugh family. They weren't able to make it back in time to actually watch the verdict unfold.
Be seated.
I understand that there's a verdict. You may bring the jury.
Inside the courtroom, as we all waited for this momentous verdict, you could hear a pin drop. The bailiff had warned the gallery, no audible reaction once the verdict was read.
I'm a realist, and I thought, well, this is really bad. But then I'm thinking, you know, I've had juries come back in shorter time with a defense verdict, and maybe this is one of those cases. And so I did have hope.
The defendant will rise. Madam Clerk, you may publish the verdict.
The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116. Verdict, guilty.
There was no emotion from Alec Murdaugh during the reading of the verdict. A defendant who at times seemed to really sob during the testimony of the trial, stoic as his fate was read in front of everyone.
When Ms. Becky read that verdict, I think that the thing that instantly came into my mind was I'm so glad I didn't put this whole team through all of this work and then we not get the result that we thought was appropriate. And I think you saw me go down the line and hug everybody on the team, and you saw some tears come out, and that was that sense from all of us.
One of the most memorable moments of the Alec Murdaugh verdict was when the judge remanded him into the custody of the sheriff's department. He turns and he looks into the gallery. He makes eye contact with his son, Buster. He mouths, "I love you." And then he's handcuffed. We can all hear the handcuffs clicking. And then he turns to walk out in front of the jury that just convicted him of double murder.
You know, I'm confident that the jury didn't believe Alec's explanation for lying about being down there, because they had been hearing 2.5 weeks of testimony about how he lied to his clients to steal money, how he lied to his partners to their face, and how he is a accomplished liar. And when it comes time for him to tell why he lied, I mean, he's not believable. He was disappointed, but he wasn't totally surprised. I mean, going into it, he questioned whether he could get a fair trial in this climate.
Today's verdict proves that no one, no matter who you are in society, is above the law. And our criminal justice system worked tonight. It gave a voice to Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, who were brutally mowed down and murdered on the night of June 7th, 2021 by someone that they loved and someone that they trusted. If we put up 1,000 pieces of evidence before a jury and they want to pick on 1 or 2 or 3 pieces of evidence, that means there's 997 pieces of evidence that they got right and that the jury relied on to convict Alec Murdaugh.
We got justice, which I think is what was entitled. It's sad because there's loss. Poor Buster's out there has lost a family, and we all feel that.
The next day, Alec Murdaugh was back in the courtroom, standing in his jail clothing and sticking to his story.
Alec, how does Buster feel about your guilty? How does Buster feel about you being found guilty?
Alec Murdaugh, now a convicted double murderer, walks into the courtroom for sentencing day wearing jailhouse garb, his demeanor much more deflated. You could tell that he was a little bit more defeated as he walked in, that he stood to listen to the judge and to hear what his fate would be.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm innocent. I would never hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never hurt my son, Paul.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Then it was time for Judge Clifton Newman to impose the sentence.
Mr. Murdaugh, if you'll come to the court for sentencing. This has been perhaps one of the most troubling cases, not just for me as a judge, but for all of the citizens in this community, all the citizens in this state, and as we've seen based on the media coverage there throughout the nation, it was especially heartbreaking for me to see you go in the media from being a grieving father who lost a wife and a son to being the person indicted and convicted of killing them. And I know you have to see Paul and Maggie during the night times when you're attempting to go to sleep. I'm sure they come and visit you.
All day and every night.
Yeah, I'm sure. And they will continue to do so.
Judge Newman directly speaks to Alec Murdaugh before formally sentencing him, almost as if he wants to engage in a conversation about what happened to Maggie and Paul. But Alec Murdaugh's not buying it. He remains defiant. All he will really say is that he is innocent and he did not kill his wife and son.
I respect this court, but I'm innocent. I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my son, Paul.
Well, and it might not have been you. It might have been the monster you become. Mr. Murdaugh, I sentence you to the State Department of Corrections on each of the murder indictments in the murder of your wife, Maggie Murdaugh, I sentence you for the term of the rest of your natural life. For the murder of Paul Murdaugh, whom you probably loved so much, I sentence you to prison for murdering him for the rest of your natural life. Carry forth on the imposition.
You know, we're just moving forward. That was one step of the process. We'd hoped that would be the end of the process on the murder charges, but it wasn't. So right now we are preparing for an appeal. That's where we are.
People can speculate, you know, and they have tried to speculate about, you know, Mexican cartels and all this other stuff. There was absolutely no evidence of any of that. The perfect storm that arrived was Alec.
It will be an uphill battle on a retrial, and that Alec's best chance of being ultimately acquitted of these murders is finding out who actually did it.
My two best friends were just murdered.
Join me for a Court TV true crime series where we take you from the crime scene to the courtroom.
Donna Adelson hates every piece of grass that Dan Marcel ever walked on.
It's something that'll haunt all of us forever.
It always seemed like he was covering or deceiving.
This was a whole different level.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rowlands, a Court TV original series. Season premieres September 27th.
Only on Court TV.